Hey guys and welcome back to my channel. This is part 3 of What If Madara Was in That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime. Before we begin, don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and also go and support the author, link in description. A deep silence weighed on the gilded throne room of Dworgen, the ancient kingdom of stone and steel. The light from its grand chandelier danced off the marble floors as King Gazel Dworgo, ruler of the dwarves and undisputed warrior king, sat in solemn contemplation. Before him, 2 royal messengers stood, cloaked in dust and sweat, having ridden hard through the night. Repeat what you just said, Gazel ordered, his voice low and sharp as forged steel. One of the messengers, a younger dwarf with soot still clinging to his armor, swallowed hard. Why yes, your majesty. The forest tribes have unified, and the man at the center is called Madara Uchiha. By every report, he single-handedly destroyed the Orc Lord's forces. Over 120,000 casualties caused by him alone. And then. He hesitated, as if even now it sounded too far-fetched to speak. He named the survivors. All 80,000 of them. The words echoed across the throne room like a thunderclap. A silence followed. Then the older messenger stepped forward, voice calmer but no less strained. They say he leads goblins, hobgoblins, direwolves, Kijin. Even lizardmen and orcs now follow his banner. He's amassed a force that rivals a proper kingdom. Our informants refer to it as a village, but that name doesn't fit anymore. Gazel leaned back in his throne, folding his gauntleted hands in front of his mouth. TCH. That bastard was right in front of me. He remembered the fleeting conversation in Dworgen's prison. The unnerving stillness of the man, and the way his presence alone made seasoned guards sweat. I wanted to believe he was just another arrogant foreigner. But I underestimated him. Gazel rose from his throne with a sharp motion. The guards in the room stiffened. I won't make that mistake again. Send word to the airships. I'm going to the Jura forest personally. A dwarf captain nearby raised an eyebrow. Your Majesty. With respect, do you intend to threaten him? No, Gazel replied, his voice a rumble. I intend to understand him. Before he becomes a potential threat. The captain hesitated. And if he does pose a threat? Gazel's eyes gleamed like fire-forged iron. Then I'll see with my own eyes if the legends are true and if that monster in human skin can bleed. The dwarves saluted as Gazel strode from the throne room, already summoning his finest warriors. Prepare the royal entourage. We leave for Jura by nightfall. The majestic dwarven entourage soared high above the rugged terrain, their destination a vibrant village hidden within the heart of the Jura forest. Each member rode atop a Pegasus, creatures of legend with wings as white as freshly fallen snow, their powerful beats echoing through the vast expanse of azure sky. As they flew in tight formation, the rhythmic gallop of hooves on air created a symphony of anticipation and tension. King Gazel Dworgo led the retinue with unwavering resolve, his Pegasus gliding seamlessly through the clouds. Below them stretched an endless canopy of verdant trees, their intertwining branches casting intricate shadows on the earth. The village clearing, a small oasis amid this emerald sea, gradually emerged on the horizon, a testament to life thriving against all odds. Gazel glanced back at his warriors, his seasoned gaze sweeping over each of them. His finest soldiers rode at his side, handpicked for this mission, not just for their prowess in battle but their loyalty and understanding of what lay ahead. As they approached the clearing, Gazel's thoughts drifted to Madara Uchiha, the enigmatic figure who had captured his interest and concern in equal measure. The tales were extraordinary, one man uniting disparate tribes under a single banner, creating not just an army but a new order within this contested land. Gazel had to see it for himself. Was Madara truly as formidable as rumored? Could this man be more than myth and legend? Upon reaching the village outskirts, the Pegasus began their descent in a graceful arc. The dwarves clutched their reins tightly as they prepared to land amidst civilians who could scarcely believe what they witnessed, beings from another realm arriving from the heavens themselves. King Gazel Dworgo descended first, as unshakable as the mountains from which he came. Clad in his royal battle armor, red cloak trailing behind him, the king's grim expression spoke of purpose. But his eyes, sharp and intelligent, carried a glint of recognition, as if this visit were long overdue. Madara stood waiting. Tall, composed, and unreadable, his robes fluttered slightly as a breeze passed through the square. His gaze, as cold and still as polished obsidian, met Gazel's without flinching. King Dwargo, Madara said with a faint nod. Come to see the aftermath for yourself. Gazel stepped down the ramp and chuckled dryly. You look no worse for wear, Uchiha. Not after taking on a 200,000-strong army and walking away with 80,000 new followers. I've had worse days. The two men stood mere paces apart. Soldiers and villagers watched from all directions, goblins, Kijin, orcs, lizardmen, and dwarves alike, all bearing witness to the reunion of two titanic forces. To the side, Trainee emerged in a shimmer of light, vines coiling gently around her feet as she materialized beside the square's central fountain. Her voice was soft but unmistakable. King Gazel, I greet you. I stand beside Lord Madara willingly, as guardian of the forest. I trust that confirms what rumors could not. Gazel gave her a brief bow of respect. A dryad's word carries weight. He turned back to Madara, his tone more somber. I should have pressed harder when you stood in my city. You were calm, controlled. Now I hear you've shaped an army, forged alliances, and struck down a demon lord. I won't make the same mistake twice. Madara raised an eyebrow. Are you here to talk? Or perhaps you've come on vacation? Gazel drew his greatsword from his back, resting it on one shoulder. Call it due diligence. I don't like being left behind when monsters change the world. Madara exhaled slowly. He didn't draw a weapon, didn't ready a stance. His arms remained folded in his sleeves. Very well. But this is a terrible idea on your end. Gazel lowered his sword, its tip touching the ground. His lips curled into something between a grin and a grimace. Don't misunderstand me, Uchiha. This isn't war, it's assessment. He rotated his shoulder, armor plates shifting with practiced ease. A friendly duel. I need to know what you are, potential ally or inevitable threat to my kingdom. Madara's eyes narrowed, then softened with amusement. A duel. He unfolded his arms, his posture shifting subtly. Very well. I accept your assessment. The surrounding villagers backed away, forming a wide circle around the two figures. Goblins scrambled onto rooftops, Kijin warriors stood at attention, and Gazel's dwarven guards formed a tight perimeter. Madara walked several paces back, his movements fluid as water. No weapon appeared in his hands, only the slight tensing of his fingers betrayed his readiness. Gazel shifted his stance, sword held in both hands now. His armor gleamed under the midday sun as he dropped into a battle-ready position. Before either warrior could move, an intense green light emanated from the grass. A tall, radiant figure stepped from the light. Trainee, the guardian dryad of the Jura forest, her emerald skin glimmering faintly beneath a cascade of golden-green hair. Her steps made no sound against the stone, her presence calm yet commanding. Madara's eyes shifted as she approached, though he said nothing. Gazel, already loosening his shoulders for the coming bout, glanced over in surprise. Dryad, I think I see what's going on here. Trainee gave a soft, courteous nod, her voice serene. Forgive the intrusion. I sensed a disturbance in the ley lines, a great tension rising. And so I came, to witness. Her glowing eyes settled on Madara. I felt your presence from the forest's heart. Even the trees whispered of your fury during the last battle. Madara remained silent, only offering a subtle incline of his head in return. Trainee turned her gaze to the clearing between the two warriors. I will not interfere. Only observe. With that, she stepped off to the side, her expression unreadable, calm, patient, but focused. Like the forest itself, she would watch and remember. A sudden gust swept through the clearing, rustling leaves and stirring dust. Silence fell, heavy and expectant. Gazel moved first, surprisingly fast for his size. His greatsword whistled through the air in a diagonal slash that would have cleaved a lesser opponent in two. Madara simply wasn't there anymore. He reappeared behind Gazel, who spun with remarkable speed, his blade already arcing toward his opponent's new position. Not bad, Madara murmured, dodging backward with minimal effort. The dwarf king pressed forward, each swing precise and powerful. You're holding back, he growled between strikes. So are you, Madara countered, finally meeting one of Gazel's strikes with his bare hand, stopping the massive blade with two fingers. A collective gasp rose from the spectators. Gazel's eyes widened. He disengaged, leaping back to create distance. Show me, he demanded. Show me what destroyed the Orc Lord's army. Madara's expression remained impassive, but something shifted in his eyes. Very well. His hands formed a series of gestures, too quick for most to follow. Fire style. Dragon flame caterwaul jutsu. The 6 flaming dragon heads that erupted from his lips dwarfed anything Gazel had witnessed from even the most skilled fire mages. The king barely raised his shield in time, the enchanted metal glowing red-hot as flames washed around him. When the fire dissipated, Gazel stood firm, his armor scorched but intact. His beard smoldered slightly. My turn, he growled, planting his feet firmly. The ground beneath them trembled. Cracks spider-webbed outward from where Gazel stood, his dwarven magic manifesting as he channeled power through his sword. Earth Cleaver. His blade struck the ground, sending a shockwave of earth and stone directly at Madara. The shinobi's eyes shifted black replaced by crimson, as the Sharingan swirled to life. Interesting, but not enough. Madara whispered. Madara sidestepped with fluid grace, his movements as natural as a breeze shifting through leaves. As he closed his eyes, a confident smile spread across his face, aimed directly at Gazel. Hand outstretched, he gestured as if telling Gazel bring it. Gazel's boots thundered as he rushed forward, sword carving a diagonal arc. Madara didn't move until the last second, when he simply stepped aside, shifting his weight just enough for the blade to pass cleanly beside his face. Gazel followed up immediately, spinning with remarkable agility for his size, and aimed a horizontal sweep. Madara pivoted low on one foot, his other leg slicing outward in a wide sweep to force Gazel to leap back. Then, with a shift of his heel, Madara launched into a fluid spiral through the air, his body rotating mid-jump with unnerving grace. It was almost dance-like, yet every movement had surgical efficiency. A third strike came from above. This time, Madara brought his left hand up not to block, but to divert. His palm caught the flat of Gazel's blade and guided it downward, allowing the king's momentum to carry him slightly off balance. In that window, Madara spun, dropping into a crouch, and exploded upward with a rising kick that struck Gazel square in the chest. Clang! The armored king was launched backward, flipping once in midair before landing hard in a crouch. Dust billowed around him as he skidded to a halt. Gasps and murmurs filled the air. Trainee simply watched, a curious smile on her lips. Madara adjusted the sleeves of his robe, face unreadable. Gazel, rubbing his chest as he laughed deep and hearty. Your movements are like wind through a battlefield. Untrackable. Unnatural. He stepped forward, sheathing his sword with a metallic click. That's enough. I've seen what I needed to see. Madara inclined his head slightly. Then come. We'll speak inside. If you have any other questions about this establishment be built in the forest. Inside the village meeting hall. The soft golden light of dusk filtered through the high windows of the village's council hall, illuminating the polished wood table around which several key figures now sat. The air was thick with the scent of incense, trainees imbuing the moment with a sacred stillness. Outside, the villagers remained quiet, sensing something important was unfolding within. At the table sat Madara Uchiha, cloaked in a new black and crimson mantle that bore no crest yet. Beside him, standing tall with hands calmly folded, was Trainee, her expression unreadable yet serene, like a guardian of ancient oaths. Across from them sat King Gazel Dwargo, armored not for battle but ceremony, flanked by 2 of his most trusted warriors. Gazel tapped his fingers on the table once before leaning forward. Let's not pretend this is a normal diplomatic visit, Madara Uchiha, Gazel said, voice firm. I saw with my own eyes the strength you wield. And my scouts. They told me things I wouldn't believe from any other man's lips. Madara offered no smugness. Only silence in those shifting, unreadable eyes. 200,000 orcs, Gazel continued, his tone lowering. Decimated. The orc disaster turned to ash. 80,000 survivors named. Trainee's voice chimed in like wind through leaves. And not simply named. Accepted. Healed. Given purpose. Gazel's brow furrowed. You named 80,000 monsters over 3 days. It nearly killed you. And now they stand loyal, orderly, inspired. I see no madness in their eyes. Just devotion. Madara finally spoke, calm and even. They chose a different path when given one. That's all. Gazel leaned back slowly. No. That's not all. You've built more than a village here. You've gathered direwolves, ogres reborn as Kijin, goblins, dragon newts, orcs, dwarves my own kin among them. And they follow you like a king, but not with fear, but with something deeper. It's because they believe in you. Madara tilted his head, thoughtful. I didn't come here to be some savior or king. I simply did what made sense in the moment. Trainee stepped forward, her green hair shifting like a willow in breeze. Sense or not, you've created something larger than you're admitting. The forest itself feels your presence. The wind carries your name. This place deserves to be named and acknowledged. Madara Uchiha, Gazel said. I came here to see the truth of you, and I've seen enough. He rose from his seat, armor clinking, and extended a hand across the table. In my authority as King of Dwargan, I recognize this land not as a village, but a nation. One of strength, of unity, and of dreams. If you'll allow it. Do you have a name in mind? The room stilled. Madara stood slowly. Everyone in the room felt the shift not in weight, but gravity. He looked to Trainee, who gave a slow, approving nod. Then he looked to Gazel. This forest. It's changed many lives. Mine included. It's a place where the broken come to rebuild. Where monsters evolve, where dreams of tomorrow take form. I've given it thought. He turned toward the window, where moonlight now cast shadows like veins of silver across the floor. Umamori, Madara said at last. The forest of dreams. A moment of silence passed before Gazel repeated the word with a deep chuckle. Umamori. Poetic. I didn't take you for a sentimental man, Uchiha. I'm not, Madara replied with a faint smirk. But the name fits. Trainee pressed her palms together and bowed her head. Then it shall be so. Umamori. I shall inform the spirits. This forest has found its heart. Gazel's hand came down in a fist against the table, sharp and strong. Then hear this, all present. From this moment forward, the nation of Umamori stands recognized by the Dwarven Kingdom. Its leader, Madara Uchiha, is now a sovereign force in Tempest's growing political sphere. Which brings us to practicalities, Gazel continued, leaning forward with his hands clasped on the table. Recognition means nothing without substance behind it. Umamori will need trade routes. Madara's eyes narrowed slightly. You're proposing an economic alliance. I'm proposing survival, Gazel countered. Your warriors are formidable, your magic unprecedented. But a nation needs more than strength. It needs stability. Trainee moved to the window, her fingers trailing along the wooden sill. The forest provides much, but not everything. Metals, finished goods, specialized craftsmanship. Precisely, Gazel nodded. Dwargan can offer iron, steel, crafted weapons. Our smiths are unmatched in all of Tempest. Madara considered this, his expression unchanged. And what would Umamori offer in return? We have little wealth. Herbs, Trainee interjected. Rare plants that grow nowhere else but Jura. Medicinal ingredients worth their weight in gold to the right buyers. And protection, Gazel added. The eastern trade routes have been plagued by bandits for generations. With Umamori as an ally, those routes become secure. That alone would increase our kingdom's commerce tenfold. Madara paced the length of the table once, his footsteps silent against the wooden floor. You speak of practical matters while overlooking the obvious, King Dwargo. And what's that? Not everyone will welcome a nation of monsters. Gazel's laugh was sharp and sudden. Of course not. The human kingdoms will panic. Falmouth will threaten sanctions. The Eastern Empire might even mobilize troops. His smile turned predatory. But that's politics. Fear drives action. Action drives opportunity. You're suggesting we use their fear against them, Madara observed. I'm suggesting we channel it, Gazel corrected. Fear becomes respect when properly managed. And respect becomes profitable alliance, given time. Trainee stepped between them, her presence commanding attention without effort. The forest has existed in balance for millennia. Now it must find new balance in this changing world. Trade is merely the first step. Madara nodded once. Very well. We'll establish formal trade routes with Dwargan. Medicinal herbs and safe passage in exchange for metalwork and crafted goods. And information, Gazel added. My network of spies extends across 3 continents. That intelligence could prove valuable to a fledgling nation. Agreed, Madara said, extending his hand. The dwarf king clasped it firmly, his calloused palm meeting Madara's battle-hardened grip. To prosperity between Dworgen and Umamori. Trainee placed her slender green hand atop theirs. May the forest bear witness to this covenant. A strange energy rippled through the room, subtle but unmistakable. The wood of the walls seemed to shift slightly, as if the very building were acknowledging their pact. Gazel pulled his hand back, eyebrows raised. Your dryad has interesting methods of notarizing agreements. The forest remembers, Trainee said simply. Madara moved toward the door. Come. Your entourage has waited long enough. We should inform them of our arrangement. Outside, the village square had transformed. Torches lined the pathways, casting warm light across gatherings of goblins, Kijin, and dwarves who mingled with cautious curiosity. Music drifted from somewhere, primitive drums and flutes creating a rhythm that bridged cultural divides. Gazel surveyed the scene with approval. Your people adapt quickly. They've had to, Madara replied. Survival depends on it. A young goblin girl approached, carrying a wooden tray with 3 carved cups. She bowed deeply before offering the drinks. Thank you, Mina, Trainee said softly. The girl beamed at being recognized by name, then scampered back to her friends. Gazel accepted his cup, sniffing it cautiously. Forest wine. Berry mead, Trainee corrected. An old recipe. The goblins have improved it considerably. They drank together under the stars, 3 powers united in an unexpected alliance. Behind them, the newly christened nation of Umamori continued its evening activities, monsters and dwarves finding common ground in shared meals and curious conversation. Tomorrow, Madara said quietly, we begin the real work. Gazel nodded. Indeed. Building a nation is harder than naming one. But not impossible, Trainee added, her eyes reflecting the torchlight like emeralds. Not when dreams take root in fertile soil. Across the square, a goblin child stood transfixed, watching the 3 figures with wide eyes. In her small hands, she clutched a crude drawing stick, figures representing the strange and wonderful leaders who had changed her world forever. The future of Umamori was just beginning. 2 days later. Umamori, village square, morning. The sky was still streaked with the hues of dawn as Madara stood at the center of Umamori, arms folded behind his back, watching the early stirrings of his people. Merchants set up makeshift stalls, goblin children laughed as they chased each other through the grass, and Kijin warriors sharpened their blades in rhythmic unity. Life was blossoming in his nation. From the horizon, the sight of a dozen flying horses caught Madara's eye. A black armored battalion parted the clouds like a tide, the symbol of Dworgen gleaming on their shields. At their center rode King Gazel Dworgo, expression stern. As he landed in front of Madara, his warriors halted, stomping to attention with the force of a hammerfall. Without a word, Gazel grabbed a sack that was riding behind him and hurled it from the saddle. The figure hit the dirt with a grunt, landing as the bag tore open face first before Madara. A familiar voice groaned. I'm not sure that was necessary, Your Majesty. Madara looked down, eyes narrowing slightly from distaste. Vesta. The fallen dwarf scrambled upright, dusting himself off but avoiding eye contact with Madara. It's been a while, Vesta muttered sheepishly. Gazel smirked. A gift, Uchiha. I believe you've earned it. Madara raised a brow. You gift me with an eyesore. A brilliant eyesore, Gazel clarified. In reformed. Vesta has begged for a chance to atone, and if anyone can make use of his talents, it's you. Kijin, who had been standing silently nearby, stepped forward. He was arrogant once, but his heart is in the right place now. I'd stake my forge on it. Vesta finally raised his head. I only ask to contribute to something greater. I've seen what you've built. What you're becoming. I want to help, if you'll have me. Madara looked him over for a long moment. Redemption is earned, not given. He turned, beginning to walk away, then paused. But I've never been against giving someone the chance to prove themselves. Gazel laughed, the sound full-throated and sincere. Then I'll leave him in your hands. Consider this my offering to Umamori. There's one more thing I'd ask of you, Uchiha. Madara turned his head slightly, acknowledging. Gazel folded his arms. The plant used to brew healing potions, the blue leaf herb that grows in your forest. It's rare, but potent. If you can grow it in quantity, Mass-produce it, then your nation could quickly become a rich ally. Would you look into that for me? Clayman's palace. In a lavish obsidian chamber lit by violet crystal chandeliers, Clayman lounged in a throne-like chair, surrounded by a circle of magical screens. One of them projected the battle that had unfolded days ago. Madara Uchiha, alone amidst a legion of orcs, rending the battlefield with wood, fire, wind, and time itself. Sitting to his left was the wild-maned carrion, arms folded, tail flicking in annoyance. To his right, the poised and aloof Frey observed quietly. But the loudest presence by far belonged to the girl standing over the table atop the crystal ball, eyes wide with excitement. Milam Nava. Whoa! Did you see that? She gasped, jumping, legs kicking in the air. He stopped time. Time. Carrion grunted. TCH. I don't like him. Too calm. Too composed. He's dangerous. Perched in a nearby seat with legs crossed and chin resting on her knuckles was Demon Lord Frey. Her golden eyes narrowed slightly as the scene replayed repeatedly. That was not magic, she said coolly. Not as we know it. Frey's eyes narrowed at the destruction on screen. Not magic, came a smooth voice from the far corner of the chamber, but power refined in war. Siveth, the corrupted elf, leaned back on a velvet couch, his long crimson hair spilling over one shoulder. His pale fingers gently swirled a glass of wine, unbothered and aloof. He is certainly not human despite the appearance and claims. Clayman chuckled, sipping red wine like it were blood. Indeed, my dear Frey. But dangerous things can be dealt with. Especially if we know how they move. Across from them, Carrion, the beast master, growled low in his throat. TCH. He's strong. Stupidly strong. But flashy techniques don't mean everything. Then, without warning, a burst of pressure and light whipped through the room. Milam Nava, the ancient demon lord, was already floating midair in front of the crystal. Her eyes sparkled, almost glowing as she grinned ear to ear. He's so cool. Did you see how he made the whole sky explode? She flipped in midair like a delighted child. And that time stuff. It's like everything just stopped and then boom. I've gotta meet this guy. Clayman chuckled, folding one leg over the other. Then why don't you, Milam? You're not the type to wait when curiosity strikes. Siveth didn't even look up as he added, voice smooth and enticing. A warrior like him doesn't come along often. If anyone could push you to go all out, it'd be Madara Uchiha. Milam's head whipped toward Siveth with childlike glee. You really think so? I know so, Siveth replied simply, taking a sip of wine. Clayman tilted his head back and laughed. And what better way to test him? A surprise greeting from the strongest demon lord. What could go wrong? Carrion scoffed. Everything. Frey sighed and added dryly. Just don't destroy a continent, Milam. Milam didn't answer. Her hair whipped around as her energy surged. Haha, alright then. Time to go say hi. A sound like a thunderclap echoed through the palace as Milam launched herself straight through the ceiling, sending shards of crystal and marble crashing to the ground. Carrion covered his eyes with a groan. There she goes. Laplace, who'd just appeared in the doorway, flicked a coin up and down in one hand. Ooh, the pink menace is off to play, is she? Clayman stood and stepped toward the crystal, watching the sky ripple in the direction Milam had rocketed. Yes, go ahead, little Milam. Let's see if Madara Uchiha bleeds. Siveth finally stood, placing his glass down on a nearby table and stepping beside Clayman. He's the reason I came to this meeting, he murmured. A scar on fate. And yet, watching that battle, I realize even I can't face him alone. Not yet. Then we let Milam destroy him, Clayman replied. And if when he falls we celebrate. The scrying crystal shifted to show the skies above the Jura forest, now trembling under the distant boom of an oncoming force. Milam Nava was on her way to Umamori. The sun was just cresting over the horizon, painting Umamori in a gentle gold. At the gates of the ever-growing city, King Gazel stood beside Madara Uchiha, arms folded beneath his royal cape. They had been discussing Vesta's potential role within the village when Madara's expression suddenly shifted. His brow furrowed. Something's coming. Kaijin glanced up. What do you mean? Madara didn't answer immediately. Instead, He turned his eyes to the sky, eyes that shimmered faintly between shades of crimson and violet. Then came the distant sound like thunder cracking open the heavens. But it wasn't thunder. It was pressure. Raw, unfiltered pressure. The air grew heavy, and even the wind seemed to cower as a pink streak of pure energy tore through the clouds like a blade. Birds scattered in panic. Several guards fell to their knees from the sheer force barreling toward them. Madara's voice cut through the rising noise. Everyone inside. Now. Benimaru hesitated. What the hell is hap? Now. Madara repeated, his tone sharper. Even Gazel, a man who feared nothing, narrowed his eyes and took a cautious step back. This pressure, it can't be. Before anyone could retreat, the streak reached them. The ground shook violently. A thunderclap cracked the sky overhead as a blazing pink streak slammed into the heart of Yumamori like a meteor. Dirt, stone, and shockwaves erupted outward in a violent ring, flattening trees, tearing loose roof tiles, and throwing dozens of guards and civilians off their feet. Only one figure stood his ground. Madara's cloak billowed, his hair swept back by the raw force of the impact, but his expression remained steeled. As the dust settled, a figure stood at the center of the smoking crater, the epicenter of the destruction. She was small, perhaps no taller than 5 feet, with slender limbs and porcelain skin faintly glowing from residual energy. Twin drills of bright pink hair bounced behind her, tied high in long, curled pigtails. Her skin was pale and smooth, her expression glowing with the kind of giddy, chaotic energy found only in those too powerful to care about consequences. Her outfit left little to the imagination. She wore a cropped black jacket with exposed shoulders, open at the front and marked with golden trim. A tiny white bikini top struggled to contain her chest beneath it, and matching black bikini-style bottoms rode low on her hips, tied at the sides with small bows. Her legs were mismatched. Her left leg bore a pink and white striped stocking, the right adorned only with a pastel garter around her thigh. Red boots laced to her knees completed the chaotic ensemble. And yet, the magicals pouring off her made even veteran warriors feel sick. She stood still, hands on her hips, cocky grin plastered across her face as if she hadn't just leveled a good portion of the town square. Her bright blue eyes locked onto the only person still standing. Hey Tilda. You didn't even flinch. She beamed, her tone light, airy, unhinged. Her smile widened. You must be Madara, huh? Madara didn't move, didn't speak, just let the dust settle around them both as the girl bounced on her heels with barely contained excitement. Within his mindscape, Hagoromo's presence stirred like a ripple through still water. This girl. Hagoromo's voice echoed in Madara's consciousness. These magicals, they're unlike anything I've sensed before. Madara observed her through narrowed eyes. The playful grin, the childish posture, the carefree destruction, all a facade masking something ancient and devastating. His senses screamed danger in ways they hadn't since facing the 10 tails. She's no child, Madara thought back. This is primordial power wearing human skin. Asterisk. Indeed, Hagoromo agreed. Even the Biju would hesitate before such raw force. Tread carefully, Madara. Asterisk. The girl tilted her head, curious about his silence. Hello. Anyone home? She waved a hand in front of her face. I flew all this way to meet you. Aren't you gonna say something? Behind Madara, King Gazel had regained his footing. His voice was tense, barely above a whisper. Milam Nava. The Dragonoid. One of the oldest demon lords. Madara's expression remained unchanged, but his mind calculated rapidly. This wasn't an opponent to underestimate or provoke unnecessarily. You've made quite an entrance, Madara finally said, his voice level. And destroyed part of my village in the process. Milam blinked, then glanced around at the crater she'd created. Oh, oopsie. She laughed, not a hint of remorse in her voice. I just got excited. They said you were super strong and I wanted to see for myself. She floated upward, hovering a few feet off the ground. The air around her shimmered with barely contained energy. So, wanna fight? Her eyes gleamed with an eagerness that bordered on mania. I promise I'll go easy on you. Gazel took a step forward. Milam, this is a diplomatic. Quiet, dwarf. She chirped, never taking her eyes off Madara. I'm talking to the strong one. Madara measured his response carefully. A direct confrontation with this being could level what remained of Yumamori. Yet showing weakness would be equally dangerous. I don't make a habit of fighting in my own village. Milam pouted, her lower lip jutting out. Boring. Come on. Just a little fight. I flew all this way. She raised a finger, and a tiny ball of energy formed above it, swirling, condensed, deadly. Maybe if I break a few more things, you'll get serious. Benimaru and several Kijin warriors had formed a defensive line behind Madara, weapons drawn. Their faces showed a mix of fear and determination. Lord Madara, Benimaru murmured. Your orders. Madara raised a hand, signaling them to stand down. Take everyone to safety. I'll handle this. Milam's face lit up. So you will fight me? No, Madara replied evenly. But I will speak with you provided you can control yourself. The energy ball above her finger wobbled then vanished as she crossed her arms with a huff. Talking is boring. For a brief moment, the childish facade slipped, revealing something ancient and calculating beneath. Then she walked directly up to Madara, invading his personal space, poking his chest. What? Don't tell me you're scared like everyone else. Right after Clayman and Sibith hyped you up. Silence. Madara didn't flinch. Her finger remained pressed against his chest right over his heart, but his gaze didn't waver. No scowl. No amusement. Just stillness. Heavy and unreadable on the outside. However, internally Madara was becoming increasingly annoyed at the girl before him. You mistake silence for fear, but you're only starting to test my patience, girl. He said coldly. His chakra began to stir, a low, unnatural hum pulsing outward like a heartbeat in the air. The stone beneath his feet cracked as a ripple of force spread through the ground. Milam grinned, unfazed. Then show me you're not boring. Her hand flashed, aiming a punch squarely at his face. It never connected. Madara vanished. A breath later, she felt the wind behind her shift and she twisted just in time to block the heel of his boot as it came down toward the back of her skull. Her feet sank into the earth from the force, arms crossed in a guard, grin still intact. Ooh tilde. She giggled. Fast. Madara landed lightly, his cloak billowing behind him. Last chance, he said, Sharingan igniting in his eyes. Leave, or I show you what fear really looks like. Milam's response was to burst forward with a full-speed charge, pink hair trailing behind her like comet streaks. I like scary men. Their fists collided in the center of the plaza with the shockwave leveling a dozen nearby buildings. The battle had begun. You threw my people around like toys. So how about I repay the favor now, he said coldly. Milam blinked and tilted her head. Huh. Oh, whoops. Sorry about that. I was XC. Shinra Tensai. The air warped. The pressure hit like a localized hurricane. A concentrated, perfectly controlled almighty push detonated directly in front of him, aimed solely at Milam. The stone beneath her cracked like glass as the force caught her dead on. She barely had time to brace before she was launched backwards. A streak of pink and smoke crashing through the outer barrier of the village and vanishing into the dense trees beyond. The wind settled. Silence returned save for the distant sound of snapping trees and a faint, delighted giggle echoing from the forest. Madara exhaled through his nose, stepping forward, his cloak rippling with residual force. Good, he muttered, levitating slowly after her. Now we don't have to hold back. The villagers watched from the rubble-strewn outskirts as their silent guardian vanished into the woods, chasing a storm in human form. Branches snapped and leaves scattered in his wake as Madara descended, the air around him humming with suppressed energy. He landed lightly in a clearing carved clean by Milam's crash, boots stirring loose soil as the wind stilled around him. Up ahead, Milam stood amidst a ring of broken trees, arms loosely at her sides, pink hair swaying gently in the breeze. Her grin hadn't faded, but her eyes now glowing faintly held the sharpness of a predator watching something that finally made her heart race. Behind Madara, several figures emerged from the foliage. Kaijin, panting from the chase, slowed as he reached the edge of the ruined grove. His eyes darted between the two combatants, sweat beating down his brow. We shouldn't be this close. Shuna, robes trailing in the wind, stepped beside him, clutching her staff tightly. But we have to see it. Benimaru, Shion, and Soe said nothing, only stood at the ready, senses sharpened, watching their lord with quiet reverence and rising awe. The space between Madara and Milam was small and only shrunk as she skipped forward, now just inches from Madara's face. Her expression shifted to curiosity, her finger poking at his chest. You're the one they've been talking about, huh? New monster with several weird powers. What's that one called? Madara didn't move. That's one way to describe me. Though I am not a monster. Milam's grin widened. Mysterious. You don't smell like a monster either, not a dragon, not a beast, not a Majin. What are you, huh? A man. A man who named 80,000 orcs and didn't die. She pressed, folding her arms behind her back as she leaned in, eyes wide. That's not very normal, you know. You're more interesting than I thought. Milam leapt backwards several meters before assuming a battle stance to signal that the battle was back on. She then vanished from sight. A boom erupted as the stone under her exploded from pure acceleration. Madara's Rinnegan flickered wide. Too fast. She was already behind him. He pivoted with a spin, forearm raised to catch her heel as it came swinging in from the side like a sledgehammer. Impact. Madara skidded. A trail of shattered rock followed in his wake as her kick blasted him halfway across the courtyard. Dust rose as he came to a controlled stop, heels digging trenches into the earth. TCH, he muttered. He'd blocked it cleanly, but the force behind that kick, it was like being hit by a meteor. Milam clapped excitedly, hopping in place. Ooh, you blocked it. You're already more fun than I thought. Madara's jaw tightened. She blurred forward again, this time with a straight punch. Madara met her fist with his own. The air screeched as shockwaves burst in every direction, fracturing stone and snapping nearby trees at their base. The sheer weight behind her punch forced his feet backward once more. Another punch. Madara weaved. Her arm shot past, narrowly missing his head. He turned low and swept her legs only for Milam to hover midair, twisting upside down and attempting to hammer down with both fists. Madara raised his gunbai above his head. Clang. The impact rang like thunder. He grit his teeth behind the fan as she bounced off it, flipped gracefully midair, and landed in front of him with a beaming grin. You're good. You're really good, she chirped. But your punches feel like little pokes. TCH. He blurred in next, launching a flurry of taijutsu strikes. Each movement was a lesson in shinobi precision palm thrusts, joint locks, spinning heel kicks, and lightning-fast jabs. Yet with every blow that struck her shoulder, hip, side, or jaw, Milam didn't flinch. She took every hit with childlike glee. Hey, that tickled, she said as his spinning elbow collided with her chin, only to have her whip around and backhand him across the field. Crack. Madara twisted in midair and landed low, crouched with one palm down to stop himself. He was breathing harder now. That backhand nearly rattled his spine. Her strength was on another level. He'd fought gods. He'd fought beasts. But this was something else. She was a comet given form. A chaotic, innocent avatar of destruction. He launched back in, hand-weaving signs. Fire style. Phoenix flower jutsu. Dozens of small fireballs burst toward her in an erratic swarm. Milam's eyes sparkled. She raised her hand, spinning once and a pressure wave burst out from her palm, extinguishing the flames with a single swipe. She charged again. This time, Madara moved differently. He dodged the punch, then the knee, but this time he was reading her momentum as he slid beside her and attempting to wrap her in a genjutsu with eye contact. Illusion technique. Binding mirage. Her steps slowed for half a second. Madara moved into strike. But she blinked, shook her head, and punched the genjutsu into nothing. Literally. Whoa. That was weird. Did you try to mess with my head? Milam asked with a giggle. No fair, mister. He jumped back, assessing. That shouldn't have been broken so easily. Quote. I see, Madara muttered aloud, even your mind is like a tempest. Not easily stilled. Milam leaned forward. Come on, don't slow down. I haven't even used half my strength yet. Madara's Sharingan rotated slowly in his left eye. Neither have I. The ground beneath his feet cracked as he leaned forward. The crowd watching from the city walls could barely see their silhouettes anymore, only flickers of movement and bursts of light. It was as if a thunderstorm had descended onto the field, and Madara's shadow was locked in a battle with a star made flesh. Milam's eyes twinkled with thrill as she rolled her shoulders and cracked her neck, standing amidst shattered ground and rising smoke. Come on, Madara Tilda. That all you got? I want more. More. Madara's expression remained neutral, but his hands moved fast. He slammed his palm down onto the battlefield. Wood style. Wood clone jutsu. Thick roots surged upward from the broken stone beneath him, coiling and shaping themselves rapidly into two identical copies of the Uchiha warlord. They burst forward before the steam even cleared, each clone seamlessly mirroring Madara's stance with gunbai and all. Milam's grin widened. Ooh, more of you. 3 is better than 1. The clones moved as one fluid extensions of Madara's will. Each approached from a different angle, their movements perfectly synchronized in a triangular formation. The first clone slid low, aiming a sweeping kick at Milam's ankles while the second launched a palm strike toward her sternum. The third arced overhead, gunbai raised to strike from above. Ooh, triplets. Milam giggled, twisting her body to avoid the low sweep. She blocked the palm strike with her forearm but missed the third clone descending from above. The gunbai connected with her shoulder, forcing her to stumble back a step the first time she'd been moved unwillingly. Hey, that's cheating. She pouted, but her eyes gleamed with excitement. The real Madara retreated to higher ground, hands already weaving signs as his clones pressed the assault. His fingers blurred through complex patterns, chakra molding within his lungs. Fire style. Great fire annihilation. A massive wall of flame erupted from his mouth, surging toward Milam like a tidal wave of scorching death. The heat alone melted stone as it approached. The clones darted away at the last second, leaving Milam directly in the Inferno's path. She raised both arms, meeting the flames head-on with a childish laugh. Warm. The fire parted around her like water breaking against stone, but in that moment of distraction, all 3 clones converged again. One locked her arms from behind while another delivered a punishing knee to her stomach. The third grabbed her face, fingers digging into her cheeks as it attempted to slam her backward. Madara's hands formed new seals. Lightning style. Thunderclap arrow. A javelin of pure lightning shot from his fingertips, crackling through the air with blinding speed. It struck Milam square in the chest as the clones leapt clear, the explosion illuminating the battlefield like a miniature sun. When the light faded, Milam stood at the center of a smoking crater, her clothing singed but her smile undimmed. That tickled. She exclaimed, brushing ash from her shoulders. Do it again. The clones attacked once more, this time in perfect rotation. As one disengaged, another would strike, never allowing her a moment to counter. They were a blur of motion, fists, feet, and weapons creating a constant barrage from every angle. Madara remained distant, his Rinnegan analyzing every movement, every reaction. Each time Milam focused on the clones, he would unleash another elemental attack. Water style. Water dragon bullet. A massive serpent of water materialized from the moisture in the air, coiling and striking with enough force to crush stone. Milam punched through it, dispersing the jutsu only to find 2 clones waiting on the other side, delivering synchronized hammer blows to her temples. She staggered, genuinely surprised. Fire style. Dragon flame singing bullets. Multiple streams of concentrated flame shot toward her in rapid succession, each tracking her movements with unnatural precision. As she dodged, the clones were there, redirecting her into the path of another fireball, then another. Hey! No fair ganging up. She spun, creating a shockwave that pushed the clones back momentarily. But they recovered instantly, circling her like wolves, each movement calculated to complement Madara's long-range assault. Lightning style. 16-pillar bind. Jagged columns of electricity erupted from the ground, forming a cage around Milam. The clones darted between the pillars, striking with precision whenever she moved to escape. From his vantage point, Madara continued the barrage, layering jutsu upon jutsu. Fire and lightning rained down in complex patterns, forcing Milam to constantly defend or evade while the clones exploited every opening. It was a symphony of coordinated violence, the clones acting as extensions of his will while he conducted the elemental chaos from afar. Yet despite it all, Milam's smile never faded. This is so fun. She shouted through the maelstrom, her hair whipping wildly around her face. But I think it's my turn now. Her eyes flashed with a dangerous light. The air around her began to shimmer with heat. Wrath of the Dragon. Pure energy exploded outward in a sphere of destruction, instantly vaporizing two of the clones and sending the third tumbling across the battlefield like a ragdoll. The lightning pillars shattered, and the ground beneath her feet liquefied from the sheer heat. Madara's eyes narrowed as the shockwave approached him. He raised his gunbai, channeling chakra through it to deflect the worst of the blast, but even so, the force pushed him back several meters. When the light dimmed, Milam hovered above the battlefield, her aura pulsing with visible power. Her childish demeanor had slipped slightly, revealing something ancient and terrible beneath. "You're really good at this game, Madara," she called out, her voice echoing with newfound resonance. "But I'm getting bored with playing defense." She vanished and reappeared directly in front of him, her fist already in motion. Madara barely had time to raise his gunbai, but the impact still throttled his arms before the force sent him crashing through the forest, trees splintering in his wake. He tumbled to a stop nearly half a kilometer away, tasting blood as he rose to his feet. The remaining clone charged from behind Milam, aiming a perfect strike at the base of her skull only for her to casually backhand it into smoke without even looking. "No more tag team," she declared, rocketing toward Madara's new position. "Just you and me now." Madara straightened, wiping blood from his lip with the back of his hand. His eyes shifted, the pattern evolving into something more complex, the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan spiraling to life. Madara narrowed his eyes. "That punch nearly made my arm go numb." He reached up and rotated his shoulder with a click. "Interesting." Milam bolted in again, her speed doubling. Madara reached for his gunbai, gripping the handle tightly as Milam charged forward. This time, he didn't retreat. Their clash erupted in a deafening boom as her fist met the broad face of his war fan. The impact reverberated through his arms, nearly numbing them to the shoulder as he skidded backward, boots carving trenches in the earth. "Not bad," Milam chirped, already spinning into a roundhouse kick. He ducked beneath it, the wind from her leg whistling overhead. As she completed her rotation, Madara countered with a swift upward arc of his gunbai, aiming for her chin. She weaved left, her movements fluid as water, and launched a straight jab toward his sternum. The gunbai intercepted, deflecting her blow sideways, but the force still sent him sliding 10 meters back. Stone cracked beneath his feet as he stabilized his stance. "You're pretty good with that thing," she observed, bouncing lightly on her toes. "Most people just break when I hit them." Madara twirled the gunbai once, adjusting his grip. "I'm not most people." She grinned wider. "Prove it." She vanished, reappearing at his right flank. A sweeping kick aimed at his ribs, but he twisted the gunbai vertical, blocking the impact. The air compressed between them as he was launched sideways, crashing through a boulder before catching himself mid-flight. He landed in a crouch, one knee down, gunbai held defensively before him. No sooner had his feet touched ground than Milam was above him, descending with both fists clasped together like a hammer. Madara rolled aside, the ground where he'd been cratering from her strike. As dust billowed upward, he spun inside her guard, gunbai sweeping in a tight arc aimed at her side. She caught it, fingers wrapping around the edge, but Madara had anticipated this. He used the momentum to vault over her head, twisting midair to deliver a heel kick to her temple. Milam blocked with her forearm, laughing. "You're fun." They exchanged a dozen blows in the span of seconds. His gunbai was deflecting punches that could level mountains, her fists and feet testing every angle of his defense. For each attack she launched, Madara had a counter, for each counter, she had an answer. A punch blocked by gunbai sent him flying through a copse of trees. A sweeping strike dodged by a hair's breadth. A kick deflected upward, creating a shockwave that split clouds overhead. The battle rhythm intensified, purely physical now, no jutsu, no magic, just raw combat expertise against overwhelming strength. Madara's Sharingan tracked every micro-movement, allowing him to anticipate her strikes milliseconds before they landed. "You're keeping up," Milam exclaimed, genuinely impressed as he weaved between her attacks, gunbai redirecting what he couldn't avoid. Madara said nothing, conserving breath. Each block threatened to shatter his arms, each deflection sent him flying further. Dodging became preferable when possible, letting her devastating strikes pass within millimeters of his vital points rather than absorbing their impact. She launched a barrage of punches so fast they blurred even to his enhanced vision. He twisted the gunbai in intricate patterns, catching or deflecting most while sidestepping others. One grazed his shoulder, tearing fabric and drawing first blood. Got you. She cheered. Madara's eyes narrowed. He spun into her guard, gunbai held horizontally as he slammed it into her midsection. For the first time, Milam actually moved, pushed back several meters by the force of his strike. Her eyes widened with delight. You're getting stronger. Their exchange continued across the battlefield, a deadly dance of attack and counter. Neither gained clear advantage. For every blow Milam landed, Madara returned with precision strikes to pressure points that would have disabled any normal opponent. For every attack he blocked with his gunbai, the impact sent him hurtling through the air only to land gracefully and re-engage instantly. The surrounding forest suffered the consequences of their battle, trees uprooted, boulders shattered, the very earth torn asunder by shockwaves from their clashes. Yet neither combatant showed signs of tiring. This is amazing. Milam shouted between exchanges, her eyes gleaming with childlike excitement despite the devastating power behind each strike. Nobody ever keeps up with me like this. Madara allowed himself the faintest smirk. We're just getting started. Their fists collided at the center of the clearing, the impact creating a perfect circle of destruction radiating outward. For a brief moment, they stood perfectly matched, neither yielding an inch, their eyes locked in mutual recognition of worthy opposition. Then Milam grinned wider, a dangerous glint appearing in her gaze. Time to stop warming up, don't you think? Madara's eyes narrowed. Indeed. The real battle was about to begin. This time it was a pure brawl, blows flew at inhuman speeds. Kicks spun with the force of warhammers, fists tore through the wind like missiles. Madara was weaving, blocking, countering. But Milam wasn't just strong, she was fast, and she was reading him faster than any opponent since Hashirama. She ducked a chop, popped up and jabbed his chin, sending Madara's head slightly skyward. He backflipped and landed, only to catch a kick to the ribs that launched him sideways, only barely catching himself with a palm against the ground. She didn't even give him time to breathe. She was already there. She came swinging with a clothesline that Madara ducked under, catching her arm and redirecting it, but she just twisted mid-spin, using the momentum to try to catch him with a spinning heel. Madara parried with his gunbai, the blow sliding off in a shrieking spark, both combatants leaping apart before dashing right back into each other. The roar of air pressure cracked the sky with each exchange. And still Milam was unscathed. She even started humming to herself in the middle of the fight. Latilda Latilda Latilda, you're fun to fight. But you're gonna have to try harder tilde. Madara landed after another mid-air exchange, his boots cracking the stone beneath. She's not even trying, he muttered to himself. Not seriously. From the safety of the walls, Kaijin whispered, Is this really a friendly spar? Benimaru didn't answer. Shien looked pale. Even Soe's ever-calm eyes were narrowed. In Milam, she was bouncing on her heels again, grinning wide. Madara stood tall once more, brushing the dust from his shoulder. Then allow me to adjust. Madara stood calmly amidst the cracked earth, dust swirling around him like falling ash. His cloak fluttered in the chaotic winds left behind from their last exchange. Across from him, Milam continued her playful bouncing, pink hair shimmering under the sun. She smiled like a child playing tag. But her blows had nearly fractured his ribs. He exhaled softly and tapped his wrist. Let's try a different tempo. Madara pressed both palms together and slammed them into the ground. Wood style. Multi-clone bloom. The earth erupted. 20 identical Madaras burst from the ground around him like a blooming lotus of fury, cloak flaring, gunbai wielding, and eyes locked on Milam. Their chakra signatures surged in unison. Milam's eyes widened in glee. Ooh, now this is getting fun. She shouted, crouching low and ready. But Madara himself didn't move forward. He raised one hand and the storm began. Wind style. Gale lance. Compressed air howled into a spear and exploded forward toward Milam. Before it reached her, he formed another seal. Fire style. Dragon flame cascade. A roaring wave of fire twisted around the wind lance, transforming it into a fiery vortex javelin. It was truly a spiraling drill of hell and force. Milam saw it coming and punched it head on. Boom. The flames scattered in a blinding explosion of wind and heat, throwing up clouds of smoke and searing the dirt beneath. But she stood there, grinning. Her gauntlet steamed, singed slightly at the edges. Then the clones descended. 2 from the left, 3 from behind. One flipped overhead, bringing his gunby down like a guillotine. Another appeared below with a rising uppercut. Milam giggled, spinning into a twisting roundhouse kick that shattered one clone outright and knocked 2 more flying. As they disintegrated, 5 more filled the gaps instantly. The Madara clones fought like wolves, circling, feinting, countering, and swarming. Their taijutsu and coordination were peerless, but Milam was chaos incarnate. She punched one into the sky, obliterated another by clapping her hands with him between them, splinters of wood spraying like blood. Her movements were almost dance-like. Every strike was powerful yet elegant. And while she was occupied, Madara kept attacking from afar. Lightning style. Thunder crossbow. Crack zap. Twin bolts of lightning split the sky and struck the battlefield, aimed precisely for Milam's back. She sensed it, twisted mid-air, and kicked the bolts apart with a spark-blasting shriek. Another clone tried to bind her from behind with wooden tendrils, but she spun again, ripping them apart with raw force. Madara's hands wove again. Wind style. Great breakthrough. Fire style. Phoenix flare. The fusion of wind and fire surged forward, a storm of embers and roaring flame that swallowed half the battlefield in a blinding inferno. The firestorm curled like a phoenix around Milam as Madara guided it with precision from afar. From the smoke Milam had burst out laughing. Her figure shot through the blaze unharmed, her clothes slightly tattered but her body untouched. She was glowing with battle lust. Oh yeah. Keep it coming, Madara. I haven't had this much fun in centuries. Madara's clones repositioned instantly. 4 leapt from the treetops, another 7 dashed in a circle, creating a ring of rotating offense. But as soon as they moved, Milam clapped her hands together and unleashed a pulse of raw power. Boom. The force flattened the area around her in a shockwave, shattering 5 clones outright and sending several others flying like tossed dolls. Madara narrowed his eyes. She's adapting. He immediately summoned 3 wind chakram in each hand, compressed cutting blades of air and launched them toward her, curving them in midair like boomerangs. As they sailed through the air, Madara had disappeared. Teleporting between his clones, Madara reappeared directly behind Milam and launched a burst of lightning from his palms, electricity crackling and searing the earth. Milam twisted and caught the blast, absorbing the damage through sheer durability. Her counter came fast. A spinning backhand that hit one of the remaining clones instead of Madara, but it still exploded, sending trees flying from the impact radius. Then, Madara leapt into the air and extended both hands downward. Fire style. Roaring meteor flame. A massive fireball, the size of a small house, launched downward like a descending sun. At the same time, 2 remaining clones struck from both sides, trying to keep Milam boxed in. Milam glanced up. She smiled wickedly. She jumped straight into the fireball. Boom. The shockwave obliterated the forest behind her. The explosion could be seen from miles away. Madara narrowed his eyes. That wasn't a reckless charge, she absorbed the flames. Out of the inferno came Milam, her skin faintly glowing red, her lips curled back in an ecstatic grin, hair whipping wildly behind her. Her aura surged even higher. I knew it. You're strong, but you've got more, don't you? She disappeared. Madara didn't even see her move. She was just there, in front of him. Her fist sank into his gut. A blast of air exploded from behind Madara's back as the hit connected. He flew, skimming the ground, smashing through trees and rock until he twisted in midair, flipping to a stop. He landed on one knee, coughing slightly, the wind fully knocked out of him for a second. From a distance, Shuna gasped. He actually got hit. Benimaru's face was grim. And she's only warming up. Madara stood slowly, a trickle of blood at the corner of his mouth. He smirked. She's learning faster than I expected. Then he raised both arms outward. Immediately roots and vines began surging upward from the ground, preparing to cast another storm of jutsu. This might actually be entertaining. Madara wiped blood from the corner of his mouth. That last punch had hit harder than a collapsing mountain. He stood straight and slowly exhaled. The eternal Mangekyo Sharingan in both eyes spun slowly, their color a vibrant crimson against his pale, godlike features. But that wouldn't be enough. I'll need more than just perception, he muttered. He reached for something deeper. That quiet part of him where chakra and magicules fused in tandem with something ancient, something divine. With a silent command, his left eye shifted, the tomo vanishing into rippling rings of Rinnegan. His right eye remained the fiery wheel of the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. A perfect union of death and divinity. From the distance, Benimaru, Kaijin, and the others stared, unsure of what had just changed, but knowing the temperature of the battlefield had just risen. Madara tilted his head slightly. Time folds for me now. And then he vanished. Milam blinked. She was in the middle of a gleeful charge, ready to pummel him again, and suddenly, his hand was already on her shoulder. She twisted to react, but it was already too late. Madara's Amenishihai had activated. Time froze within a 60-meter sphere. The world became silent, colorless, still. In that moment of absolute stillness, Madara spun around behind her and sent a precise strike to the center of her back, not a full-powered punch, just a measured blow meant to destabilize her footing. Time resumed. Milam stumbled forward as the impact rocked her balance but not her body. She skidded on the ground with a delighted laugh. Oh, that was tricky. What did you do just now? Madara didn't answer. He was already gone again. Stop. Move. Hit. Resume. Stop. Move. Feint. Hit. Resume. It became a rhythm. A symphony of controlled manipulation. He blinked into and out of frozen moments, slipping past her defenses and striking her from angles that made no logical sense. To the onlookers, it was like watching Milam stutter through time, jerking violently from one hit to the next, but showing no signs of pain. Her body was taking it, absorbing every blow. And still she smiled. Inside Madara's mind, the sky was split in aurora hues, a beautiful but chaotic dreamscape. You're wasting your chakra, Hagoromo said firmly, arms crossed inside Madara's subconscious. Amenishihai is taxing even for you. He's trying to finesse his way through brute force, Indra added with disdain. She's not a puzzle. She's a warhead. Maybe he likes it this way, Asura grinned. Trying to out-technique a nuke. Bold. Madara's voice echoed in their space, low and calm but edged with frustration. Every hit lands. Every sequence is flawless. And yet. You've barely bruised her, Hagoromo finished. Milam Nava's durability may rival that of a primordial. She is not a foe to whittle down. Enough, Madara decided, breaking from his internal dialogue. Let's test her limits further. His right eye flared with cosmic energy as he activated Amenishihai once more. The world crystallized into perfect stillness, a snapshot of reality frozen in his grasp. Milam remained suspended mid-attack, her joyful expression locked in place, one fist extended toward where he had been standing a millisecond prior. Madara circled behind her, his palm opening as dark chakra coalesced into a black rod, the signature weapon of Rinnegan users. He aimed for her exposed shoulder, focusing his chakra to create the sharpest, densest rod he'd ever manifested. The rod struck her skin and shattered instantly. Fragments scattered in slow motion, suspended in the frozen time field. Madara's eyes widened fractionally, but he recovered immediately. If penetration wouldn't work, then impact might. He launched into a rapid sequence of strikes, a palm thrust to her kidney, an elbow to her spine, a spinning kick to her temple, each blow perfectly placed at pressure points that would incapacitate any normal opponent. Satisfied with the combo, he leapt backward, putting distance between them before releasing his hold on time. Reality lurched forward. Milam staggered slightly as the accumulated force of his attacks registered all at once. She blinked twice, then rotated her shoulder where the rod had shattered. Ooh, that was different. Did you just try to stab me? She laughed, seemingly delighted rather than offended. And those little taps on my back tickled. I told you this wouldn't work, Hagoromo's voice echoed in Madara's mind, tinged with exasperation. Her physical durability transcends conventional attacks. Even Rinnegan manifestations cannot pierce her skin. Madara's jaw tightened imperceptibly. Then we adjust. Milam stretched her arms above her head, bouncing on her toes. That time freeze thing is super neat though. Do it again. I want to see if I can break out of it. Her childish excitement belied the terrifying implications of her request. If she could adapt to a Menashihi. You know, Milam continued, tilting her head with genuine curiosity, nobody's ever given me this much fun. I get go all Dragon Y this time if you keep this up. Dragon Y. Madara repeated, his tone flat despite the question. Milam's eyes gleamed with mischief. Wanna see? Before he could respond, her aura shifted. The air around her thickened, condensed with raw magical energy that made the atmosphere itself feel heavy. Her eyes began to glow with an inner light, her hair lifting slightly as if underwater. She vanished, not teleporting, but moving so fast the human eye couldn't track her. Even Madara's Sharingan barely registered the blur before her fist connected with his Susanoo's rib cage before going straight through to his chest. The impact sent him flying backward, crashing through 6 trees before he managed to twist midair and land in a crouch. His ribs actually ached from the blow. This is becoming problematic, he muttered, rising to his feet. Problematic. Hagoromo's voice was incredulous in his mind. She's holding back enough power to level continents. The fact that you're still standing is remarkable. Milam appeared before him again, hovering a few feet off the ground. Hey, don't tell me you're done already. We're just getting to the good part. Madara straightened, adjusting his stance. Far from it. He pressed his palms together, focusing his chakra. If brute force and precision strikes wouldn't work, perhaps it was time for a different approach. Wood style. Deep forest emergence. The ground beneath them trembled, then erupted in a tidal wave of wood and foliage. Massive trees burst upward, twisting and growing at unnatural speeds, their branches weaving together to form a dense, living labyrinth. Milam watched with wide-eyed fascination as the forest rose around her. Ooh, pretty. But this wasn't just for show. As the trees encircled her, Madara's hands formed another seal. Wood style. Sap's embrace. The branches began secreting a thick, amber sap chakra-infused resin designed to immobilize even the most powerful beings. It dripped down toward Milam, who poked at it curiously with one finger. Sticky. She observed, seemingly unbothered as the resin coated her arm. Madara wasn't finished. He placed both palms on the nearest tree trunk, channeling his chakra through the entire forest network. Wood style. Deep forest bloom. Flowers erupted across every branch and trunk, beautiful, deadly blossoms that immediately released a cloud of soporific pollen. The golden dust filled the enclosed space, thick enough to render unconscious any creature that breathed it in. Milam sniffed, then sneezed. Achoo! The force of her sneeze created a shockwave that blasted a hole through the forest canopy, dispersing the pollen cloud and shattering several of the largest branches. She rubbed her nose. That tickles. Madara's expression remained unchanged, but inwardly, he reassessed his strategy. The wood-style techniques that had once restrained the nine-tailed fox were barely an inconvenience to her. Try something else, came Indra's voice, sharp with impatience. She's not a tailed beast, she's something far older. Madara nodded slightly. Then perhaps we should match ancient with ancient. He leapt upward, landing atop the highest remaining tree. From this vantage point, he could see the entire battlefield, a sprawling circle of devastation with Milam at its center, still partially encased in resin but breaking free with casual movements. Let's change the rhythm again. Madara's gaze sharpened as he lowered his left hand and reached up to his right eye. The eternal Mangekyo flickered for a moment and then shifted, melting into concentric ripples as both eyes became Rinnegan. Twin galaxies of power burned across his face. A subtle wind spiraled around him as chakra rippled outward like heat off molten metal. His body hummed with intensity, the very air between him and Milam shimmering with warping pressure. Inside his mind, the trio of ancestors watched closely. There it is, Indra smirked, arms crossed as he leaned into the light. Both Rinnegan active now, stop playing around. Use Amaterasu, Indra offered suddenly. Your body remembers it. Sasuke was my vessel. That fire can't be extinguished. Let it eat her from the inside out. Or Kirin, he added with a cocky smirk. Make her dance in lightning. Madara's eyes narrowed in thought, but his reply was cold and calm. Later. For now I'll drain her dry with the Preta path until she learns respect. With a booming clap, Madara slammed his palms together in the ram seal. From the cracked ground beneath him, 3 massive wood dragons erupted, towering, serpentine beasts of bark and chakra, their roars shaking the air itself. Coated in chakra-absorbing seals, each dragon twisted and writhed toward Milam with fangs bared and maws open. Milam tilted her head. Ooh, these are new. Are these your pets, old man? The first dragon lunged. She uppercut it so hard it splintered mid-flight into a storm of burning bark. But the second snaked around her from behind, too fast, too quiet. It wrapped her midsection, fangs biting into her side. She growled. Tch clingy. Just then, Madara descended, riding the third dragon's head like a chariot, gunby raised behind him. His foot slammed onto Milam's bound shoulder and she buckled slightly under the force. At the moment of impact, Madara's palm glowed dark purple. He touched her skin. A surge of energy rushed from her body toward his hand. Preta path. The chakra absorption wasn't massive because Milam's reserves were oceanic, but the principle worked. He could drain her, just not in gulps. He would need to sip, endlessly, persistently. Madara dropped low and struck her leg, another Preta path pulse. Milam, now mildly bored of wood, exploded her aura, disintegrating the dragon around her with raw force. She lashed out, her punch aimed square at his chest. Clang. Madara's ribcage Susanoo flared into being, intercepting the blow. He slid back, the impact kicking up soil in twin trenches under his feet. That's not fair. Milam shouted. Now you've got armor again. Madara said nothing, just dashed forward again. Another exchange began. They danced now in lethal rhythm. Madara's body weaving with unmatched elegance, launching strikes that siphoned chakra while using wooden tendrils to bind or feint, and Susanoo ribs snapping into place only when a blow was too dangerous to parry. The battlefield had become a maze of shattered bark, flame, and trench. He feinted with a clone, sent a stream of fireball jutsu from the flank, followed by a ground-splitting lightning bolt from above. Milam backhanded the clone out of existence, kicked the fire aside like a ball, then dodged the lightning as if it were a leaf. And yet her body was now covered in burn marks. Not wounds, but evidence that she was finally being touched by his attacks. Small signs. Progress. From the sideline, Shion whispered, "Is he actually getting to her?" Benimaru narrowed his eyes. He's using her own stamina against her. This is a siege. Inside Madara's head, Indra grinned. I see. There's a rhythm now. You push, she flexes, you pull. A perfect waltz. Hagoromo, contemplative as ever, nodded. But how long can it last? Asura crossed his arms. It won't. He's testing. I know that look. He's still having fun. Back on the battlefield, Milam's breathing hitched barely, but Madara saw it. A quick burst of magicules from her body to shake loose the clinging roots told him she was burning more energy than she expected. He landed in front of her and raised a single finger. A bolt of black lightning split the sky and hurled toward her, followed by a roaring whirlwind of flame, the two elements merging into a storm vortex with crackling infernos at its core. Milam roared with laughter and punched through it, but was greeted by a third wood dragon snatching her arm mid-strike, pulling her back into a spinning kick from Madara. She crashed to the earth, sending tremors for miles. Madara landed across from her, breathing steadily, eyes glowing with twin violet storms. What's wrong? He asked, voice low but taunting. Out of breath already, princess. Milam stood slowly, her smile wider than ever. Her jewel cracked slightly at the shoulder. Her eyes burned with unrelenting joy. She brushed dirt from her face. You're so cool when you're trying. Milam pointed a gloved finger at him with a grin. You know, for an old man, you move pretty well. Madara's eye twitched. Old. You're calling me old when you walk around dressed like a rebellious brat. She gasped with mock offense. Rebellious brat. I'm a princess. The princess. Get it right. Madara tilted his head. A princess with the manners of a drunken bandit. Milam placed both hands on her hips. I'll have you know I'm super polite. Usually. But you're special, you look like someone who needs shaking up. Madara folded his arms, hiding the pain behind his ribs. I'm not here to be your plaything. She leaned forward, eyes narrowing, voice dropping with coy threat. Then stop playing with me and fight seriously. Milam's lips curled into a wolfish grin, but behind the smile was calculation. She could feel it. Madara's movements were sharp, and his techniques were clever. But he still thought he had a say in the tempo. That was cute. Madara leapt down from the root with poise, dusting bark off his shoulder. Then let's test something, he said, slowly raising his gunbai. In a blur of motion, Milam was already in front of him, too fast to react properly. She didn't wind up. She didn't roar. She simply punched. The flat of Madara's gunbai rose to block as reflex took over. But it didn't matter. Crack. The world seemed to slow as the gunbai split in half like a shattered shield. Madara's eyes widened in sheer surprise before the full force of Milam's punch tore into his abdomen, blasting past his chakra-reinforced ribcage and body with an explosive shockwave. Her fist embedded itself into his gut up to her wrist but stopped just short of punching through completely. Her eyes widened. Oops. Boom. Madara's body was launched. His spine bowed unnaturally as he crashed through 3 trees, ricocheted off a jagged boulder, and skipped across the ground like a stone across water, each impact throwing up clouds of rock and earth. By the time he came to a stop, Madara was buried under rubble, bloodied, and groaning softly under his breath. A goblin scout hiding in a tree almost fainted watching it. Milam floated toward the crater with a sheepish smile, twiddling her thumbs. Ah, that might have been too much juice. Benimaru's jaw was clenched. That was holding back. Kaijin shook his head, sweat trickling down his temple. She cracked his weapon like it was glass. Shion snarled. She killed my lord. I'll. From the rubble, Madara's body twitched. His cloak was torn nearly in half. Blood trickled down the edge of his lip. The remnants of the gunbai were splintered beside him as it slowly began to regenerate and knit itself back together. His voice was low. A rasp. But laced with wicked amusement. Finally. He spat out blood and wiped his chin. A real dance partner. His twin Rinnegan blazed. The crater still steamed. Silence. Then came the screams. From the walls of Umamori to the skies above it, panic ignited like dry kindling. Lord Madara. No, he couldn't. Shion surged forward, eyes wide, fury boiling under her skin. I'll kill her. I'll kill her. Kaijin grabbed her arm, holding her back with trembling hands. You'll die. Even he couldn't stop that. Ranga howled at the sky, claws gouging the earth. He was supposed to be invincible. Gobta had dropped to his knees. No, Madara-sama. Benimaru's fists trembled as flames flickered off his shoulders uncontrollably. This can't be real. The entire city had frozen. Thousands of evolved monsters now stood paralyzed by grief and fear. Their god had fallen. Above it all, Milam blinked once, then twice. She lowered her fist, blood still warm on her knuckles. Quote. Wait. I didn't mean to. Her voice wavered for a second. Her expression briefly unreadable. But her curiosity quickly overtook her guilt. She floated down toward the body. Far away, in the crystal chamber of demon lords, Clayman was laughing. Oh ho ho. What a delightful little crater. He beamed, hands clapping together. I was beginning to worry he'd drag that out. But she's so reliable, isn't she? Frey remained unreadable, resting her cheek in her hand. Carrion just folded his arms with a scoff. That guy went down too easy. Clayman grinned wider. Please. Even Milam has her moments of overkill. He never stood a chance. Sivith leaned back, arms crossed, eyes glowing softly. He's not getting back up. The amount of divine force in that strike would have turned most demon lords into stains. Then a curl of his lip. But still, watch closely. Inside Madara's mind. It was screaming. You fool. Roared Asura. Get up, damn it. That little girl just tried to kill us. I warned you not to play around. Barked Indra. You wanted a dance, are you satisfied now? Hagoromo's voice cut through the panic. Silence. He's not dead. Look. Beneath the earth and rubble, Madara's blood stopped flowing. The gash in his abdomen, deep and visceral only moments ago, began to stitch closed at a supernatural pace. Muscle knits, skin regrows, nerves rewire. His eyes, closed, now fluttered open, glowing faintly with unnatural clarity. His body didn't just heal. It was, adapting. Inside his head, Hagoromo's voice softened, reverent and cautious. He's evolving. Pay attention. Milam approached slowly, boots crunching through broken stone and scorched roots. The battlefield had gone eerily still as if the world itself held its breath. Craters opened like wounds in the earth, and the air stank of ionized pressure and smoke. Madara lay still in the wreckage. Blood stained the dirt around him. His chest was torn open, his gunbai shattered, his once intimidating form broken and motionless. Milam stood over him, arms folded, brow furrowed. Tch. She looked away. I didn't mean to hit him that hard. Her voice dropped. He was fun. She crouched beside his rubble pile, fingers glowing faintly with scanning energy. Her expression turned from regretful to puzzled. Number pulse. No aura. She leaned in closer. Number way I actually killed him. Her hand moved closer to check. Too close. The ground ruptured. A low rumble shook the clearing as the air tightened, then snapped with a sound like the world itself gasping for air. From beneath the rubble, a column of raw, blinding energy exploded upward, not smooth or graceful, but violent, primal. It tore into the sky like a spear, emerald blue and white light spiraling within it, surrounded by arcs of jagged lightning. Chunks of stone levitated upward into orbit, spinning in erratic loops. The earth fractured in circular patterns as if reality itself was recoiling. It was a vertical shockwave that reached the clouds, parting the sky like a divine lance had been thrown from the core of the world. Milam staggered backward, her eyes wide as the force of the shock V-wave pushed her back a few feet. The light intensified, shifting hues from electric teal to deep indigo as a monstrous shape began to form within the beam. First came the ribs, jagged, translucent, massive. Then the arms and legs, each movement like a thunderclap. Ethereal armor locked into place piece by piece, layered with fanged edges and layered plates that shimmered between spirit and substance. Finally, the face took shape. A war mask of demonic wrath, four horns curved back like a crown, with glowing violet eyes sunk deep in sockets of hate. Its mouth opened, bearing rows of glowing teeth. The forest trembled as the perfect Susanoo rose to full height, casting a shadow over the trees. Its massive bladed jagged, ethereal weapon longer than most buildings was pulled from its back and lowered in a slow, deliberate arc. From the other arm, a rotating ring of chakra discs began to materialize, pulsing with layered force. Madara stood within the forehead of the Titan, suspended in its brow crystal, his Rinnegan gleaming. His voice echoed from within, deep and thunderous. You shouldn't have let your guard down. The energy from the Susanoo surged once more, cracking the treetops and sending a shockwave outward that flattened the surrounding forest for miles. Massive. Majestic. Terrifying. Madara's voice had barely finished resonating through the shattered forest when his Susanoo moved with cataclysmic purpose. The Titan's colossal foot, vast as a fortress, rose high into the air, casting an immense shadow that eclipsed Milam. Time seemed to fracture, the moments stretched infinitely as the impossible appendage descended with meteoric power. Before Milam could process or counter, her instincts screamed too late, and the foot connected with her slight frame with a force not unlike the fury of stars colliding in ancient skies. The very essence of existence quivered under the contact, energy rippling out in visible waves that split realities. She was flung across the landscape like a comet cast from Olympus. Her trajectory drawing a blazing line through stratospheres of earth and sky. Mountains stood no chance, they cleaved apart as if fashioned from paper under her accelerated form. Forests dissolved into splinters and dust caught in her wake. Her path ended abruptly, she collided with a distant cliffside producing a detonation of pulverized rock and earth. It erupted outward with volcanic intensity, a mountain shattering under her impact. For moments, all was silent. Then the world caught up. What followed was a thunderous roar that rolled back over the terrain like the wrath of gods unleashed. A noise so profound it transcended sound itself, reverberating in bone and soul alike. The sonic boom unfolded like an invisible tempest, bending trees until they snapped and hurtling lesser creatures into oblivion under its sheer pressure, extinguishing their fragile sparks of life in an instant. A relentless echoing cacophony that heralded more than mere destruction, it was an announcement. A battle where titans played heedlessly with forces that could unmake worlds. Madara stands. His eyes, glowing with eerie clarity, were calm. Focused. He didn't gloat. He didn't smile. But something had shifted inside him. Something new was now buried deeper. Something beyond the perfect Susano that he could feel just barely restrained. So this is what I've been holding back, he thought. This world has no name for what I am. The construct around him responded like a limb, its movements seamless. The energy it exuded raw and undiluted was no spell, no skill. But the world would mistake it for one all the same. In the village, the ground shook with aftershocks. Buildings trembled. Light flickered. The wind itself had fled. Rigurd fell to his knees, sweat pouring down his face. He's not mortal. Ranga growled, eyes wide. This is something beyond naming. Gobta was already face down in the dirt. Please make it stop. Benamaru, standing at the outer wall, couldn't speak. His instincts screamed to flee. Shion, mouth slightly open, gripped her greatsword without realizing it. Madara-sama, what are you? Soe appeared behind her, voice low. He was toying with her. The whole time. Gabiru, normally loud, muttered in awe. That's not a technique I've ever heard of. Gazel Dwargo stood among his guards, cloak billowing in the gale of force. Stone cracked beneath his feet. He stared upward at the massive figure and its hovering master, silent for several heartbeats. What kind of monster did we invite into our politics? In the dark, the crystal ball trembled with reactive pulses of vision. Clayman reeled back. What is that? What's he using? Carrion narrowed his eyes, jaw set. That's no magic I've seen. And I've seen everything. Freya tilted her head slightly, golden eyes widening. No chant. No structure. Not even divine origin, it's pure. Sivith leaned in toward the crystal, whispering. What is this magnificent power? I've never seen anything like it. I want it. Impossible. Clayman slammed his fist against the table, sending wine goblets toppling. The crystal ball trembled with the raw energy emanating from Madara's perfect Susano. That attack should have killed him. I watched his chest cave in. Sivith stood abruptly, his normally composed demeanor shattered. His crimson hair whipped around his face as he paced, eyes never leaving the crystal. He didn't just survive, he just evolved in real time. That construct. It's not magic, not divine blessing. It's him. An extension of will made manifest. She hit him with enough force to level a city, Clayman hissed, fingers digging into the armrests of his chair until they splintered. And now he's tossing her around like a ragdoll. What manner of creature did you bring to my attention? Sivith's pale face had drained of what little color it possessed. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know he could do this. His voice dropped to a whisper. The naming of 80,000 was impressive enough, but this changes everything. Carrion leaned against a pillar, arms folded across his massive chest. His lion-like features remained impassive, but his tail swished with interest rather than alarm. Fascinating, he rumbled. Two forces of nature colliding. The little pest finally found someone who can give her a proper fight. You're not concerned. Clayman snapped, turning to him with wild eyes. Carrion shrugged. Neither threatens my domain. Let them destroy each other for all I care. Makes for good entertainment. In the corner, Frey remained seated, her golden eyes unblinking as she studied every movement on the crystal's surface. She hadn't spoken since Madara's transformation, but her attention was absolute. Her fingers lightly traced the rim of her untouched wine glass, the only indication she was still present. The crystal ball flared with another surge of light as the battle continued. Milam had recovered from being launched through a mountain range and was now hovering above the crater, her childish demeanor replaced by something more primal. She's going to use Stampede, Sivith breathed. She hasn't been pushed to that since the founding of the Demon Lord Council, Clayman finished, sweat beading on his forehead. And he forced her to it in a single exchange. The crystal's vision shifted, focusing on Madara within the Susano's crown. His expression remained calm, almost meditative, as he directed the ethereal giant with the subtlest gestures. Look at him, Sivith whispered. He's not even straining. That construct isn't draining him like our magic drains us. Frey finally spoke, her voice soft but cutting through the tension. He's adapting to her power with each exchange. Learning. Evolving. She leaned forward slightly. The question isn't whether he can match her strength, it's whether he has limits at all. The crystal ball crackled with energy as Milam's aura shifted, her body beginning to glow with an inner light that turned her skin translucent. Stampede transformation, Clayman muttered. She's actually going to use it. The vision in the crystal ball suddenly distorted, fracturing into prismatic shards before going completely dark. What happened? Clayman demanded, striking the ball with his palm. Show me. Sivith stared at the blank crystal, his voice hollow. The magical feedback. Their power levels are interfering with the scrying spell. He looked up, meeting Clayman's panicked gaze. We've lost our window. Find another way to watch. Clayman ordered, pacing frantically. Send familiars, use a different crystal anything. It's too late, Frey said, rising from her seat with fluid grace. The outcome is beyond our sight now. Carrion chuckled, pushing away from the pillar. Worried, Clayman, that your little scheme to have Milam eliminate a potential rival just backfired spectacularly. Clayman's face contorted with rage. This wasn't supposed to happen. She was supposed to crush him like an insect. And yet, Frey observed coolly, the insect has grown wings of divine fire. She turned toward the door. I've seen enough. Whatever emerges from that battlefield will reshape our understanding of power in this world. Where are you going? Clayman demanded. To prepare, she answered simply. Either Milam returns victorious, or we face a new reality where someone walks among us who can challenge her. She paused at the threshold. Neither outcome allows for complacency. As she departed, Sivith collapsed back into his chair, staring at the dead crystal with haunted eyes. What have we unleashed? Milam shot toward the colossal Susano like a pink comet, her hair streaming behind her as she rocketed across the sky. The distance between them vanished in seconds. Let's see how tough that armor really is. She shouted, eyes gleaming with childlike excitement. She struck the Susano's chest with a thunderous right cross. The impact sent shockwaves rippling through the air, but the ethereal armor merely flickered, absorbing the blow with minimal distortion. Undeterred, she spun into a devastating roundhouse kick that connected with the Titan's shoulder. Another boom echoed across the battlefield, yet the Susano remained unmoved. No way. Milam pouted, hovering back slightly. That's cheating. She launched into a frenzied assault, her limbs blurring as she delivered a 30-hit combination across the Susano's torso and face. Each strike would have leveled mountains, yet against Madara's construct, they produced nothing more than ripples of azure light where her fists and feet connected. From within the Susano's crown, Madara observed her attacks with analytical calm. Impressive speed, he murmured, but unfocused. Milam darted upward, gathering energy in her palm before driving it directly into the Susano's forehead mere inches from where Madara himself was suspended. The explosion of power briefly snapped the construct's head back, but it took no visible damage. Why won't you break? She punctuated each word with a blow that sent tremors through the earth below. The Susano's massive hand moved with surprising speed, snatching Milam mid-attack. Its fingers closed around her tiny form, completely engulfing her in a fist the size of a small building. Enough games, Madara's voice resonated through the construct. Submit. The Susano's grip tightened, compressing with force that could pulverize diamond. Light leaked between its fingers as Milam struggled within. Submit. Her voice carried through the ethereal prison, laced with amusement rather than pain. I'm just getting warmed up. A strange transformation began within the Susano's clutches. Milam's aura shifted, her skin taking on a luminous quality as the air around her crystallized with pure energy. Combat mode. Activate. The Susano's fingers began to crack, hairline fractures spreading across its azure surface. Madara's eyes narrowed as he felt the resistance growing. Impossible. Milam's strength multiplied exponentially, her small hands pushing outward against the Titan's grip. The cracks widened, beams of radiant light escaping through the fissures. Madara directed the Susano's second hand to reinforce the first, both colossal fists now wrapped around Milam's glowing form. For a moment, the pressure seemed to contain her until her laughter echoed across the battlefield. Too late. Both hands shattered simultaneously, exploding into thousands of luminous fragments. The chakra construct disintegrated from the fingers upward, breaking apart into crystalline shards that drifted through the air like sapphire snowflakes. The ethereal pieces caught the sunlight, transforming the battlefield into a sea of floating azure diamonds. Milam hovered amidst the disintegrating hands, her body radiating power. Her eyes had changed. No longer playful but focused, glowing with inner light. Her hair floated around her face as if suspended underwater, and faint markings had appeared across her exposed skin. "This is my combat mode," she announced, her voice deeper. Madara's perfect Susanoo loomed against the darkening sky, its ethereal form still imposing despite the shattered remnants where its hands once were. The chakra at the broken wrists flickered and sparked, struggling to reform but failing against the overwhelming force that had destroyed them. Milam hovered before the Titan, her transformation complete. Gone was the childish demon lord in her playful attire. In her place floated a being of terrifying beauty and power. Black and violet armor encased her slender form, each plate seamlessly connected with gleaming gold trim that pulsed with inner light. A single crimson horn protruded from her forehead, radiating malevolent energy. Behind her, 6 demonic wings unfurled like living shadows, their edges sharp enough to slice through reality itself. "No more playing," she announced, her voice resonating across the battlefield. "Now you face Milam Nava, destroyer of nations." Madara narrowed his eyes from within the Susanoo's crown. So the child finally shows her true form. Milam vanished. The air where she had been imploded with a thunderclap as she broke the sound barrier a dozen times over. Before Madara could track her movement, she reappeared directly before the Susanoo's face, fist already in motion. The impact was cataclysmic. Her armored knuckles connected with the Susanoo's cheek, and the world seemed to stop for a heartbeat before the shockwave erupted. The azure face caved inward, cracks spider webbing across its surface as the entire construct staggered backward. Trees for miles flattened under the pressure wave, their roots torn from the earth as if a god had exhaled in fury. Madara grunted, feeling the blow resonate through his connection to the Susanoo. Such power. Milam didn't wait. She blurred again, reappearing behind the titanic warrior. Her wings spread wide as she drove both fists into its spine. The Susanoo's back armor fractured, shards of chakra breaking away like glass caught in a hurricane. The construct lurched forward, its balance compromised. "Too slow." Milam taunted, already moving again. She became a streak of violet light, circling the Susanoo faster than mortal eyes could follow. Each pass left a devastating wound in the ethereal armor, a gouge here, a fracture there, methodically dismantling the Titan's defenses. Madara commanded his creation to swing its massive sword in a horizontal arc, hoping to catch her mid-flight. The blade, longer than 100 men laid end to end, cut through the air with impossible speed. Milam didn't dodge. She met the blade head-on, her small fist colliding with the edge. The sword shattered on impact, breaking apart into fragments of light that dissipated like morning mist. The Susanoo recoiled, now weaponless. "Is that all?" Milam asked, hovering before the construct once more. "I expected more from the legendary Madara Uchiha." From within the Susanoo's crown, Madara's expression remained impassive, but a bead of sweat traced his temple. His fingers moved in subtle gestures, directing the construct to form a defensive stance. Milam laughed, a sound both beautiful and terrible. "Defense won't save you." She shot forward again, this time aiming for the Susanoo's chest. Her fist connected with the center of its breastplate, and the world itself seemed to hold its breath. Then came the sound, a crack that echoed across continents, as if the planet's crust had split. The Susanoo's chest armor caved inward, a perfect crater formed around her fist. Cracks radiated outward like lightning bolts frozen in time. The air pressure from the blow created a vacuum that sucked in debris from miles around before exploding outward in a dome of pure force. Mountains in the distance trembled. Lakes rippled from their centers outward. Birds fell from the sky, stunned by the concussive force that rolled across the landscape like divine thunder. Madara felt it. He felt actual pain as his connection to the Susanoo drained his chakra in an attempt to stay stable. Milam pressed her advantage. She didn't retreat after the blow but pushed deeper, her armored fist breaking through the Susanoo's chest entirely. Light erupted from the wound as she penetrated the construct's core, her arm disappearing up to the shoulder inside its ethereal body. "Found you," she whispered, her eyes locking with Madara's. With a twist of her body, she burst through the other side, tearing a hole clean through the Susanoo's back. The Titan's form flickered violently, its integrity compromised as chakra leaked from the massive wound like luminous blood. Yet it still stood as a testament to Madara's indomitable will. Milam hovered behind the damaged construct, admiring her handiwork. Still standing. Impressive. But not for long. She spread her 6 wings wide, gathering energy between her palms. The air distorted around her hands as reality itself bent to accommodate the power she was concentrating. Wrath of the Dragon King. The beam that erupted from her hands was no mere energy attack. It was annihilation given form, a column of destruction that erased everything in its path. It struck the Susanoo's back and bored through the existing wound, widening it exponentially until the construct's entire torso was engulfed. The beam continued onward, carving a trench through the earth that stretched to the horizon, vaporizing everything it touched. When it finally dissipated, a canyon remained where once stood unbroken forest. The Susanoo stood motionless, a gaping hole where its chest and back had been. Its arms hung limply at its sides, chakra flickering weakly across its damaged form. Its head slumped forward, the crown where Madara resided now exposed through the shattered armor. It's over, Milam declared, floating before the construct's face once more. You fought well, but this is my victory. She drew back her fist for the final blow, energy coalescing around her knuckles. Inside the crown, Madara closed his eyes. His breathing was steady despite the blood trickling from the corner of his mouth. Within his mind, a conversation unfolded in the span of a heartbeat. She's too strong, Asura's voice echoed. The perfect Susanoo isn't enough. Then evolve, Indra countered. Go beyond perfect. Hagoromo's presence resonated through Madara's consciousness. It will require everything you have. The fusion of chakra and magicules at their purest level. Madara's eyes snapped open. So be it. As Milam's fist descended toward the Susanoo's crown, Madara's chakra surged. Not outward, but inward, collapsing upon itself like a dying star, compressing to a singularity of pure power. The perfect Susanoo began to crumble, its form disintegrating into particles of light. But rather than dispersing, the fragments swirled inward, drawn to Madara's body like moths to flame. Milam's fist connected with empty air as the Susanoo vanished completely, leaving only Madara hovering in its place, surrounded by a cocoon of swirling chakra and magicules. What's this? Milam paused, genuinely curious. Another trick. Madara's voice was calm, almost serene. Not a trick. Evolution. The cocoon tightened around him, growing denser, more concentrated. The air vibrated with potential energy as two forces, the ancient chakra of his world and the magicules of this one, began to intertwine at his command. You wanted to see my limits, Madara said, his voice carrying despite its softness. As did I. The cocoon began to pulse with a heartbeat rhythm, each throb sending out waves of pressure that bent light itself. The sky darkened overhead as clouds were drawn into a spiral, forming an eye directly above them. Then let us both witness what lies beyond perfect, Madara concluded as the cocoon began to crack, light spilling through the fissures. Milam's eyes widened with genuine excitement. Yes. Show me everything you've got. The cocoon shattered. What emerged was neither man nor titan, but something transcendent. The ultimate Susanoo began to take form, drawing equally from both worlds' powers, a fusion that had never before existed in either realm. The battle of gods had only just begun. The perfect Susanoo stood broken, its once imposing form now riddled with cracks and fissures. Light leaked from the massive hole punched through its chest, a testament to Milam's overwhelming power. The construct's armor plates drifted away like autumn leaves caught in a dying breeze, dissolving into motes of blue light. At its core, Madara remained motionless, suspended within the fractured crown. His eyes closed. His breathing slowed to almost nothing. Milam hovered before him, her combat mode radiating violet energy through the darkened sky. 6 wings spread behind her as she tilted her head, curious rather than cautious. Is that it? She asked, genuine disappointment in her voice. I thought you'd last longer. A single drop of blood slid from the corner of Madara's mouth. Then his eyes snapped open. The Rinnegan's concentric rings pulsed once, then flared with intensity that turned night to day. His voice, when it came, was barely above a whisper. This isn't even close to my limit. The air stilled. Birds stopped mid-flight. Leaves hung suspended in their fall. A preternatural silence descended over the battlefield as if the world itself held its breath in anticipation. Then a heartbeat of pure chakra. The fragments of the shattered Susanoo halted their dissolution. Each piece trembled, then reversed direction, drawn back toward Madara like iron filings to a magnet. The shards accelerated, spinning faster, creating a whirlwind of azure energy that contracted inward with impossible force. What are you doing? Milam's voice held a note of genuine curiosity. Madara's hands formed a single seal, one not seen in this world before. Something that should be impossible. The ground beneath them cracked. Not just the battlefield, but the earth for miles around. Fissures spider webbed outward from the epicenter, deep enough to swallow houses whole. Trees uprooted themselves, drawn upward by the shifting gravity before crashing back down like discarded toys. In Umamori, buildings shuddered. Glass shattered. The very foundations of the city groaned under pressure never meant to exist in the mortal realm. Everyone get down! Benimaru shouted, pulling civilians to the ground as the air grew heavy enough to crush lungs. Kaijin fell to his knees, gasping. What is he becoming? The swirling vortex of Susanoo fragments condensed around Madara, compressing tighter and tighter until they formed a perfect sphere of light, a miniature sun hovering in the devastated clearing. Then, the sphere began to pulse with that same heartbeat rhythm, each contraction sending visible ripples through reality itself. Inside, Madara floated in a void of pure chakra and magicules. His consciousness expanded beyond his physical form, touching something ancient and terrible that had always existed within him, the dormant essence of the 10 tails, the primal chakra of Indra, the divine spark that made him more than human. In his mindscape, Hagoromo appeared beside him, translucent and solemn. This fusion. It shouldn't be possible, the sage whispered. Chakra and magicules were never meant to combine this way. And yet, Madara replied, here we stand. Outside, the sphere cracked. A single fissure appeared across its surface, leaking light so brilliant it burned the eyes of those who dared look directly at it. Then another crack formed, and another, until the entire construct was webbed with fractures. Milam backed away slightly, her combat mode armor gleaming as she raised an arm to shield her eyes. This power. It's different. The sphere shattered. What emerged was neither the perfect Susanoo nor anything this world had witnessed before. It began as a skeletal framework which was massive, dwarfing its predecessor by half again its height. The bones glowed with inner fire, not the cool blue of before, but a blazing azure tinged with violet at its edges. Each vertebra, each rib, each metacarpal formed with deliberate, excruciating precision. Then came the musculature layers of energy that flowed like liquid mercury, wrapping around the skeleton in pulsing, living waves. The sinews twisted and stretched, forming connections that hummed with raw power. Every movement sent cascades of lightning arcing between joints, each spark capable of vaporizing stone. Armor plates manifested next, materializing from pure energy. They locked into place with thunderous reports that echoed across the continent, chest plates interlocking with shoulder guards, gauntlets forming over massive forearms, greaves encasing legs that could stride across mountains. Each plate bore intricate patterns that shifted and changed, ancient symbols from a world long forgotten. The face formed last no longer the simplified war mask of the perfect Susanoo, but something more primal, more divine. A crown of horns erupted from its head, curving backward like a demonic monarch's diadem. The mask lifted slightly, revealing rows of teeth that glowed with inner light. Its eyes no longer empty sockets but blazing orbs that mirrored Madara's own Rinnegan fixed upon Milam with predatory focus. Behind it blades massive blue flame tinged with lightning burned bright. But formed of pure chakra blades that cut through the fabric of reality itself. The flame stretched wider than the Susanoo's entire body, casting long shadows that seemed to devour light. Madara stood at its core, no longer suspended but integrated, his consciousness expanded throughout the construct, feeling every inch of its impossible form as if it were his own flesh. The transformation completed with a final surge of power. Cracks appeared in the sky itself as reality struggled to contain what should not exist. The ultimate Susanoo stood fully manifested, a god of war from beyond the Veil of Worlds. For one perfect moment, silence reigned. Then it moved. The sound barrier shattered like glass as the ultimate Susanoo's fist connected with Milam's guard. She had barely raised her arms before the impact sent her rocketing backward, carving a trench through the earth that stretched for miles. Mountains in her path crumbled to dust before she managed to halt her momentum, her 6 wings flaring wide to stabilize her flight. Now this is more like it. She shouted, genuine excitement replacing her earlier disappointment. She launched herself forward, her speed turning her into a violet comet streaking across the devastated landscape. The ultimate Susanoo met her charge head-on, its massive fist colliding with hers in midair. The shockwave was apocalyptic. A perfect dome of compressed air expanded outward from the point of impact, flattening everything in its path. Trees were reduced to splinters, boulders to powder. Lakes vaporized instantly, their water turned to steam that rose in massive columns toward the fractured sky. The sound that followed was not a boom but a roar, as if the planet itself cried out in pain. In Umamori, buildings collapsed despite being miles from the epicenter. People were thrown to the ground by the force, many rendered unconscious by the pressure alone. The city will be destroyed if this continues. Shion shouted over the cacophony, struggling to maintain her footing. Benimaru could only watch in mute awe, his normal composure shattered by the spectacle unfolding in the distance. This is beyond anything. Back on the battlefield, Milam and the ultimate Susanoo exchanged blows at speeds that defied comprehension. Each impact created localized shockwaves that rippled outward like stones dropped in a pond, except these ripples leveled forests and reshaped terrain. The ultimate Susanoo caught Milam with a sweeping backhand that would have obliterated a lesser being. She took the hit directly, her body bending with the force before she recovered mid-flight, spinning to deliver a kick that connected with the construct's shoulder. Armor plates cracked but immediately reformed, drawing energy from the surrounding area to repair the damage. The ultimate Susanoo responded by seizing Milam in one massive hand, squeezing with force that could compress diamonds into dust. Milam's aura flared in response, her 6 wings becoming bladed weapons that sliced through the Susanoo's fingers. As she broke free, she unleashed a barrage of energy blasts from her palms, each one powerful enough to level a city. The ultimate Susanoo swept its wings forward, creating a shield of chakra blades that deflected the attacks into the sky, where they detonated like miniature suns. The artificial daylight cast harsh shadows across the ruined landscape, illuminating the 2 titans locked in combat. You've been holding back all this time. Milam accused, her voice carrying despite the chaos surrounding them. There was no anger in her tone, only exhilaration. Madara's voice resonated through the ultimate Susanoo, amplified to match its scale. As have you. They clashed again, this time with Milam diving from above while the Susanoo rose to meet her. Their combined momentum created an impact that sent visible ripples through the air itself, concentric circles of distorted reality expanding outward from their meeting point. The ground beneath them could no longer withstand the pressure. It collapsed inward, creating a massive sinkhole that rapidly expanded to become a crater large enough to swallow cities whole. At its center, the 2 beings continued their exchange, each blow matching the other in perfect, terrible symmetry. The ultimate Susanoo gathered energy between its palms, condensing it into a sphere of pure destruction. Milam responded by drawing her hands back, violet light coalescing between her fingers. Wrath of the Dragon King. She called out, thrusting her hands forward. Susanoo. Yasaka Magatama beads, Madara countered, the ultimate Susanoo mirroring his movements. The 2 attacks met in the center of the crater. For a heartbeat, nothing happened, as if the universe itself couldn't process the paradox of such power contained in a single point. Then the world went white. The explosion that followed was beyond description, a cataclysm that rewrote the geography of the region in an instant. The shockwave circled the globe multiple times, detectable even on the furthest continents. The heat vaporized everything within a 100-mile radius, turning solid matter into superheated plasma that rose into the atmosphere in a towering column visible from space. When the light faded and the dust began to settle, the battlefield was unrecognizable. Where once stood forests and mountains now stretched a glass-smooth crater, the earth fused into obsidian by heat beyond imagining. At its center hovered 2 figures, diminished but unbowed. The ultimate Susanoo had contracted slightly, its outer layers burned away by the blast, but its core remained intact. Milam's combat mode armor showed signs of damage, cracks visible across its surface, but her smile was wider than ever. Again, she demanded, her voice hoarse but eager. Madara's answer came not in words but in action. The ultimate Susanoo surged forward, its speed undiminished despite the damage it had sustained. This time, its tactics changed, no longer just raw power, but precision and technique. It moved like a master swordsman, each gesture calculated and efficient. The ultimate Susanoo's massive arm swept forward, aiming to crush Milim beneath its divine palm. She twisted mid-air, her 6 wings flaring as she dodged by mere inches. The ground where she'd been standing vaporized instantly. Too slow. She taunted, her voice carrying across the devastated landscape. She countered with blinding speed, driving her fist into the Susanoo's side. The impact sent fractures rippling through its armored plates. Before Madara could react, she appeared above, delivering a devastating heel kick to the construct's crown. The ultimate Susanoo staggered, its balance compromised for the first time since its manifestation. Madara grunted, feeling the connection between himself and the divine construct weaken momentarily. This isn't working. Hagoromo's voice echoed in Madara's consciousness. She's adapting to your patterns. Asterisk. Milim pressed her advantage, launching a barrage of strikes that connected with surgical precision. Each blow chipped away at the Susanoo's armor, creating fissures that leaked ethereal light. She's targeting structural weaknesses, Asura observed. The joints, the connection points. She's dismantling your defense systematically. Madara directed the Susanoo to counterattack, but Milim was already gone, reappearing behind to land another punishing blow that sent the construct lurching forward. We should consider a strategic withdrawal, Hagoromo suggested. Even the ultimate Susanoo cannot withstand this assault indefinitely. Retreat. Indra's voice cut through, sharp with disdain. Unthinkable. We are Uchiha. We do not flee. Madara's jaw tightened as Milim landed yet another devastating combination, this time targeting the Susanoo's chest plate. Cracks spider-webbed across its surface, threatening to compromise the entire structure. The lightning of the heavens. Indra continued. Kirin. Let the sky itself judge her. Asterisk. Madara gathered his remaining strength, focusing it into the Susanoo's right arm. Lightning chakra coalesced around its fist, crackling with intensity that turned the air itself into plasma. With a downward thrust of terrifying precision, the Susanoo drove its lightning-enhanced fist toward Milim. The strike connected with thunderous impact, catching her squarely in the chest. The electrical discharge that followed lit up the darkened sky, momentarily outshining the sun itself. Milim plummeted toward the earth, her body wreathed in residual lightning as she crashed into what remained of a mountain range. The impact sent plumes of pulverized rock skyward. For a moment, silence reigned. Then the rubble exploded outward as Milim rose once more, her combat mode armor scorched but intact. Blood trickled from the corner of her mouth, which she wiped away with the back of her hand. That one actually hurt, she said, her grin widening. But it'll take more than that to keep me down. She launched herself back into the fray with renewed vigor, her strikes now carrying even greater force, as if the pain had only invigorated her. We cannot sustain this, Hagoromo warned as the Susanoo absorbed another punishing blow. Each exchange drains your reserves while she seems limitless. Asterisk. Retreat is wisdom when victory is impossible, Asura added. Live to fight another day. Asterisk. Madara's frustration mounted as Milim continued her relentless assault. The very suggestion of withdrawal grated against everything he stood for. He was Madara. Uchiha. Retreat was anathema to his very being. No, he thought back fiercely. I will not yield. Asterisk. His right eye shifted, the concentric rings of the Rinnegan dissolving back into the swirling pattern of the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. Power surged through him as he focused his remaining chakra. Amenishihai. Asterisk. Time froze within a 60-meter sphere. The world lost its color, sound ceased to exist, and motion halted completely. Milim remained suspended in mid-attack, her fist extended toward the Susanoo's vulnerable flank. Madara directed the ultimate Susanoo to reposition, moving behind Milim's frozen form. The construct gathered its remaining strength into a concentrated strike aimed at the base of her spine. Time resumed. Milim's attack met empty air as the Susanoo's fist connected with devastating force. She was launched forward, unable to brace for an impact she hadn't seen coming. Before she could recover, Madara activated Amenishihai again. Time halted once more, granting him another opportunity to strike with impunity. The Susano delivered a crushing blow to Milam's exposed back, driving her toward the ground with unstoppable momentum. As time flowed once more, Milam crashed into the earth, creating a crater that stretched for miles. But she was already rising, confusion evident in her expression for the first time. That's not fair. She shouted, genuine frustration in her voice. You're cheating. Madara didn't respond. Instead, he activated Amenishihai a third time, freezing Milam in place as she attempted to launch herself back into the fight. The ultimate Susano delivered a final, devastating combination, a strike to her solar plexus, followed by an uppercut that connected with her chin, and ending with an overhead smash that drove her deep into the fractured earth. When time resumed, the accumulated force of all three blows registered simultaneously. The ground beneath Milam collapsed inward, forming a perfect circle of destruction with her at its center. The dust settled slowly, revealing a crater within a crater. At its heart lay Milam, her combat mode armor now visibly damaged, cracks running across its surface like a shattered mirror. She pushed herself up on one elbow, spitting blood onto the scorched ground. So that's how you want to play, she said, her voice lower, more dangerous than before. The childish demeanor had vanished entirely, replaced by something ancient and terrible. No more games, then. She rose to her feet, her aura shifting, as a pink aura leaked from her. The air around her began to warp, reality itself bending under the pressure of the power she was gathering. Madara braced himself within the ultimate Susano, knowing that the true battle was only just beginning. His reserves were dangerously low, the strain of maintaining both the construct and Amenishihai taking its toll. But surrender was not an option, not for him, not ever. Come, then, he challenged, the ultimate Susano mirroring his defiant stance. Show me everything you have. The sky darkened as Milam's transformation began, her silhouette distorting within a cocoon of pure magical energy. Lightning struck the ground around her, not from the clouds above but from the sheer concentration of power being unleashed. This was no longer a battle between warriors, it was a clash of forces that could reshape continents. And neither combatant showed any sign of yielding. The crater glowed pink as dust settled around its edges. Milam rose slowly, her armor cracked but intact, 6 wings unfurling behind her. Blood trickled from her lip, which she wiped with the back of her hand. The childish gleam in her eyes had vanished, replaced by something ancient and cold. That's cheating, she growled, her voice echoing across the devastated landscape. Freezing time over and over. She floated upward, hovering above the impact zone. The air around her hands began to shimmer with heat distortion as she brought her palms together. Between them, a sphere of energy coalesced, small at first, then expanding rapidly. Pink and gold light spiraled within it, compressing into something dense enough to bend light around its edges. Let's see how you handle Drago Nova. The sphere continued growing, now pulsing with its own heartbeat. The temperature skyrocketed. Trees at the crater's edge burst into flame spontaneously. The ground beneath her feet vitrified into glass. Even miles away, citizens of Yumamori felt their skin tighten from the heat. Madara stood impassive within his ultimate Susano, watching the growing threat. The massive ethereal warrior towered above the battlefield, its armor gleaming with cosmic energy, yet hairline fractures now spread across its surface, evidence of the punishment it had endured. Milam thrust her arms forward. The sphere compressed one final time before erupting into a beam of concentrated annihilation. It screamed across the distance between them, the air igniting in its wake. The Susano braced, crossing its massive arms before its chest. The beam struck dead center. For one heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the beam punched through, not deflected, not absorbed, but tearing through the divine construct like paper. It cored the Susano's torso, leaving a perfect circular hole where its chest had been. Light leaked from the wound, chakra hemorrhaging into the air. The beam continued its path into the stratosphere before detonating. The explosion painted the sky with apocalyptic light, turning day to evening as clouds vaporized in an expanding dome of destruction. Inside the crumbling Susano, Madara's eyes widened fractionally. The construct's integrity was failing, its form destabilizing as cracks spread from the gaping wound. He had milliseconds to decide. He abandoned the Susano, leaping clear as the massive construct collapsed into fragments of light behind him. The shockwave from Drago Nova's detonation rushed toward him like a tidal wave of heat and force. Madara twisted midair, landing in a crouch as the blast front washed over the battlefield. Trees disintegrated. Stone melted. The very air burned. Within Madara's inner world, chaos erupted. What the hell was that? Asura shouted, pacing frantically within the mental landscape. She just punched through Ultimate Susanoo like it was nothing. That's impossible. That's. Be quiet, Indra snapped, though his usual composure had cracked. He stared at ghostly projections of the battlefield, fingers tapping rapidly against his arm. We need a counter. Something with equal force. Maybe if we channel the tailed beast chakra into. No, that won't work. Perhaps a genjutsu to never mind, her mind is too chaotic. Hagoromo floated serenely between them, his expression thoughtful rather than panicked. She is powerful beyond measure, but look at her, he observed. She fights with the fury of a child denied her toy. Her power is undisciplined, emotional. Perhaps the solution is not to match force with force. His eyes met Madara's within the mindscape. She responds to attention, to acknowledgement. A simple word of praise might diffuse her rage more effectively than any jutsu. Outside, Madara rose to his feet, face impassive despite the blood trickling from his temple. The sky above had transformed. Drago Nova's heat had created a massive temperature differential, drawing storm clouds from miles around. They swirled ominously, charged with potential energy. Perfect conditions for what he needed. Milim descended slowly, her damaged armor glinting in the strange half-light. Ready to surrender yet? Or should I hit you with something bigger? Madara's expression remained stone cold. No hint of Hagoromo's suggestion crossed his features. Instead, his hands formed a sequence of seals too quick to follow. Wood style. Deep forest emergence. Massive trees erupted from the scorched earth, twisting toward the sky in unnatural growth patterns. Not one forest but dozens, spreading outward in concentric rings, creating a layered battlefield of timber and shadow. As the forests took shape, Madara's hands formed another seal. 4 perfect copies of himself materialized beside him, each containing a portion of his chakra. Spread out, he commanded. Create distance. Buy time. The clones vanished into the newly formed forests as Madara himself leapt backward, putting terrain between himself and Milim. Above them, lightning flashed through the gathering storm clouds. Rain began to fall first in scattered drops, then in sheets that hissed against the still hot ground, creating a fog that shrouded the battlefield. Madara's eyes shifted, both irises transforming into the concentric rings of the Rinnegan. Limbo. Border jail. The air around him rippled imperceptibly as 4 invisible clones materialized in a dimension adjacent to reality. They existed beyond normal perception, untouchable, unseen, but capable of affecting the physical world. Milim scanned the suddenly complex battlefield, her damaged wings flaring with irritation. Hiding now. That's boring. She launched herself forward, diving into the forest with devastating speed. Trees shattered in her wake as she carved a path of destruction, hunting for her opponent. Without warning, she staggered mid-flight, struck by something she couldn't see. A limbo clone had intercepted her, its invisible fist connecting with her jaw. Before she could recover, another unseen force slammed into her side, sending her crashing through a thick trunk. What the? She spun, fists raised against an enemy she couldn't perceive. A third blow caught her from behind, driving her into the ground. Confusion replaced confidence in her expression as she pushed herself up, only to be struck again from an impossible angle. Show yourself, she demanded, unleashing a blast of energy that leveled the surrounding forest in frustration. 30 yards away, one of Madara's wood clones observed from the canopy. Its hands formed seals, directing roots to erupt beneath Milim's feet, attempting to ensnare her legs. She shredded them effortlessly, but the distraction allowed another limbo clone to land a clean hit to her sternum. Across the battlefield, another wood clone manipulated the terrain, creating walls and barriers that funneled Milim's movement along predictable paths. Each time she adjusted, either a limbo clone or a new obstacle would force her to change direction again. Madara himself stood atop the highest remaining tree, hands raised toward the storm clouds. Lightning danced between his fingers as he began gathering charge, slowly shaping the natural electricity into something far more deadly. 8 minutes, he murmured, calculating the time needed for Kirin to reach full potential. Milam's patience evaporated. She hovered above the ruined forest, her damaged armor gleaming with renewed energy. Enough games. She clapped her hands together, sending out a shockwave that flattened everything within a half-mile radius. Trees, stone, and earth all pulverized by the raw force of her frustration. 3 wood clones disintegrated instantly. The 4th barely escaped, leaping to a new position as its previous hiding place was obliterated. The limbo clones, existing in their separate dimension, remained unaffected. They continued their assault, striking from angles that defied prediction. Each blow landed with precision, targeting joints and pressure points rather than attempting raw damage. Milam snarled, her composure cracking. She began firing blasts indiscriminately, scorching the landscape in widening circles of destruction. One blast passed within inches of Madara's position, forcing him to abandon his perch and find a new vantage point. 7 minutes, he noted, landing on a distant outcropping. The storm intensified overhead. Lightning forked across the black clouds with increasing frequency. Rain fell in blinding sheets, turning the battlefield into a morass of mud and broken vegetation. Steam rose where the droplets hit superheated ground, creating a ghostly fog that drifted between the shattered tree trunks. Milam hovered in the center of the devastation, her wings spread wide as she tried to locate her opponent. Blood mixed with rain on her face, but her eyes burned with undiminished fury. She extended her senses, searching for any trace of Madara's presence. A limbo clone struck from her blind spot, landing a solid blow to her kidney. She twisted, lashing out at empty air. Another hit connected with her shoulder, disrupting her balance mid-swing. Enough! She roared, her voice thundering across the battlefield. Her aura exploded outward, a dome of pure force that expanded in all directions. Trees uprooted. Boulders reduced to gravel. The very air seemed to catch fire as her power radiated outward in concentric rings of destruction. Madara's last wood clone disintegrated under the onslaught. The limbo clones, though unharmed, were pushed back by the sheer magnitude of her energy release. 6 minutes, Madara whispered, shielding himself behind a hastily raised earth wall. The barrier crumbled under Milam's power, forcing him to leap away once more. He landed in a crouch, hands already forming new seals. Wood style. Multiple wood dragon jutsu. 5 massive wooden serpents erupted from the sodden ground, each larger than the last. They converged on Milam from different directions, their maws open to reveal rows of wooden fangs. She destroyed the first with a casual backhand, shattering its head into splinters. The second met a similar fate, torn apart by a concentrated energy blast. But the third managed to wrap its body around her leg, its touch beginning to drain her magicules. Milam snarled, ripping the dragon apart with her bare hands. The fourth and fifth attacked simultaneously, one binding her arms while the other coiled around her torso. For a moment, they held her immobilized as their chakra-draining properties activated. It lasted 3 seconds before she exploded with rage, reducing both constructs to sawdust. 5 minutes, Madara counted, his voice steady despite the strain evident in his posture. Above them, the storm had reached its peak. The clouds churned like a malevolent whirlpool, centered directly over the battlefield. Lightning struck with increasing frequency, each bolt carrying enough charge to vaporize stone. Milam spotted him at last, her eyes locking onto his position across the devastated terrain. Found you. She launched herself toward him, her damaged wings leaving trails of light in the rain-soaked air. Her fist drew back, glowing with concentrated energy. Madara stood still, his gaze fixed and unyielding. As she glided towards him, determined to close the gap between them, 4 ethereal limbo clones appeared out of thin air. They moved with uncanny precision, flanking her from all cardinal directions. Each clone struck with exact timing and force, their coordinated assault leaving her no room to maneuver. The impact of their combined blows drove her violently into the earth, the ground yielding and shattering beneath her as a crater formed from the sheer force of the attack. Milam exploded from the crater, her rage now a tangible force that bent the air around her. She spotted Madara retreating across the shattered landscape and launched herself toward him like a vengeful comet once more. You can't hide anymore. She roared, her damaged wings trailing pink fire. Madara's hands flashed through seals, his expression calculating rather than desperate. Wood style. Supreme Wood Golem Jutsu. The earth heaved and split as something massive began to emerge. Not just wood, but a fusion of chakra-infused timber and crystallized magicules that glowed with internal light. A titanic fist punched through the surface, followed by a shoulder the size of a small mountain. The wood golem rose fully, towering above the battlefield at nearly 300 meters tall. Unlike Hashirama's creation, this construct pulsed with dual energy veins of blue chakra and pink magicules intertwining through its wooden frame. Its face was a stylized mask of determination, eyes gleaming with reflected storm light. Milam halted mid-charge, momentarily stunned by the sheer scale of the creation. That's different. The golem didn't wait for her assessment. Its massive arms swept forward with impossible speed for something so large, catching Milam before she could dodge. The impact sent her crashing through the remains of a distant hillside. Madara stood atop the golem's head, hands flowing through another sequence of seals. Wood style. Forest genesis. The golem slammed both fists into the ground. From the impact points, a new forest erupted, not the gentle growth of natural woods, but an explosive expansion of timber and foliage. Massive trees shot skyward, their trunks as thick as castle towers, branches interweaving to form a dense canopy. Within seconds, the devastated battlefield transformed into a primeval forest that stretched for miles in every direction. The trees continued growing, their roots spreading underground in complex networks, their branches reaching toward the storm-dark sky. Milam burst from the rubble, her eyes widening at the transformed landscape. You think a few trees will stop me? She launched herself toward the golem again, only to be intercepted by a wooden dragon that erupted from the forest floor. Its jaws clamped around her midsection, immediately beginning to drain her energy. She snarled, ripping it apart, but two more appeared in its place, snaking around her limbs. Get off! She shouted, her aura flaring to incinerate her attackers. The wood golem moved with surprising grace for its size, its massive hands weaving patterns in the air. More dragons emerged from every direction, each one thicker and stronger than the last. They converged on Milam in waves, not attempting to defeat her but to occupy and drain her. Meanwhile, the limbo clones circled unseen, landing precise strikes whenever an opening appeared. An invisible fist to her kidney. A spectral kick to her knee joint. A hammer blow to her spine that sent her stumbling forward into the path of three more wood dragons. Milam roared with frustration, spinning in place to create a shockwave that shredded everything within 50 meters. Wood splinters filled the air like deadly rain. The golem didn't flinch. Where dragons were destroyed, the splintered wood simply flowed back into the forest floor, absorbed by the living network of roots. New constructs emerged instantly, reforming from the endless supply of timber that now surrounded them. Madara directed the golem to raise one massive hand. A platform of interwoven roots formed beneath his feet, lifting him high above the battlefield. Higher and higher he rose, until he hovered 400 meters above the chaos below, the storm clouds nearly within reach. From this vantage point, he could see everything: Milam's position, the flow of the forest, the movements of his limbo clones. He began another sequence of hand signs, more complex than before. Below, Milam tore through a particularly thick dragon, only to find herself suddenly ensnared by roots that shot up from the ground. They wrapped around her ankles, her wrists, her torso, hundreds of them, each individually weak but collectively overwhelming. This is getting annoying, she screamed, her power flaring to burn away her restraints. But for every root she destroyed, three more took its place. The forest itself seemed alive, responding to her movements, anticipating her attacks. And always, the invisible limbo clones continued their assault, landing blows that came from nowhere, disorienting her further. As she fought, massive structures began to rise around her. Gigantic lotus-shaped formations, their petals, formed from interlocking roots and branches. Their centers opened like mouths, revealing hollow chambers that began to glow with ominous light. Inside Madara's mind, Hagoromo's presence stirred. She's contained for now, but not for long. What's your plan? I need nature energy, Madara replied mentally. Significant amounts, quickly. I can gather it, Asura offered. But it will take time and complete concentration from both of us. Do it, Madara commanded, closing his eyes briefly. I'll handle the rest. As Asura began drawing nature energy into Madara's system, the Uchiha's focus remained absolute. The wood golem continued its assault, now generating smaller versions of itself that joined the fray. Each mini-golem targeted a different part of Milam's body, attempting to pin her down while the forest continued its relentless growth around her. The lotus formations, now 7 in total, had fully formed, surrounding Milam in a perfect circle. Within their open maws, energy began to coalesce, not just chakra, but something denser, darker. Tailed beast chakra, drawn from Madara's memories of the 10 tails, compressed into perfect spheres of destruction. Biju bombs. Milam noticed them at last, her eyes widening slightly as she recognized the threat. Oh, that's not good. She redoubled her efforts, her damaged wings flaring with renewed energy as she attempted to break free of the constant entanglements. A wave of destructive force emanated from her body, vaporizing everything within a 100-meter radius. But the forest simply regenerated, drawing life from the network that now extended for miles in every direction. The wood golem, damaged by her blast, began healing instantly, wooden plates reforming over its massive frame as it absorbed energy from the surrounding trees. Above them all, Madara's body began to change. Markings appeared around his eyes, not the toad-like features of traditional sage mode, but elegant patterns that complemented his Rinnegan. Nature energy gathered, Asura confirmed within Madara's mind. Use it wisely. Madara's eyes snapped open, now glowing with the combined power of Sage Mode and the Rinnegan. Asura Path. His body transformed further. 2 additional arms erupted from his shoulders, fully formed and functional, each as powerful as his original limbs. All 4 hands immediately began forming different seal sequences simultaneously, moving with perfect coordination. Sage Art. Shadow Style, Thunder Blast. Madara threw this 2 new arms behind him skyward. Lightning erupted from his palms, not the normal blue-white of conventional electricity, but deep violet streaked with black. It shot into the storm clouds above, where it spread like veins through the churning darkness. The storm responded, the clouds swirling faster, drawing inward toward a central point directly above the battlefield. Lightning flashed continuously now, illuminating the scene in strobing purple light. Within the maelstrom, something began to take shape, a serpentine form of pure electrical energy, its body composed of compressed lightning. It grew larger with each passing second, feeding on the storm's power and Madara's chakra. Kiran. But this was no ordinary Kiran. This was a divine beast of apocalyptic proportions, its body stretching across the entire sky, jaws large enough to swallow cities, eyes gleaming with eldritch intelligence. Purple lightning crackled along its length, each scale a perfect fractal of electrical energy. Below, Milam had finally noticed the true scale of Madara's preparation. Her eyes widened as she looked up, taking in the monstrous form materializing above her. The Biju bombs in the lotus formations had reached critical mass, pulsing with barely contained power. You wouldn't dare, she breathed, genuine concern crossing her features for the first time. Madara stood still upon his rising platform, arms glowing with sage energy, stormlight dancing across his Rinnegan. He tilted his head ever so slightly. I would, he said simply. Milam's eyes narrowed. You wouldn't hit a friend with something like that. Then submit, Madara replied, voice even. Yield. Call this done, and no further harm will come to you. Milam's brows furrowed, her lip twitching defiantly. HMPH. As if. No way, I'm saying, I give up, not after how fun this is. Madara exhaled softly. His eyes closed, and to Milam's surprise, he gave her a smile. A gentle, serene smile. Very well, he said, as if granting a favor. Then, without another word, all 4 of his arms moved in unison, completing the final seals. Milam blinked. That smile, calm, almost peaceful, caught her completely off guard. It wasn't mocking or arrogant. Just gentle. He should smile more often, she thought, strangely mesmerized for a beat too long. Looks way less grumpy when he does. For a moment, the battle, the stakes, the storm above it all faded. All she could focus on was that fleeting expression. It made her heart skip, just a little. Then she remembered what he was about to do. Her eyes widened again. Wait. She summoned her strength, her aura exploding outward in a real bid for freedom. The restraining roots shattered, the attacking golems disintegrated, and she launched herself skyward. only to be intercepted by the wood golem's massive hand, slamming her back down into the center of the lotus formation. More roots erupted, these reinforced with Madara's sage chakra, binding her with strength she couldn't immediately break. Now, Madara commanded, his 4 arms all extended like he was pushing something towards her. The Kirin roared a sound beyond thunder, beyond comprehension. It dove from the heavens, its massive body cutting through the storm clouds like a divine spear. Simultaneously, all 7 lotus formations discharged their Biju bombs, the dark spheres launching inward toward Milam's position. In the final moment before impact, the 4 limbo clones moved with perfect coordination. They positioned themselves at cardinal points around the target zone, their invisible hands weaving seals to form a specialized barrier jutsu, one designed not to contain the explosion, but to redirect it. Milam looked up, her expression shifting from rage to something almost like respect. Well played, Madara Uchiha. The convergence was absolute. First came silence, a perfect, impossible absence of sound as time seemed to stop. Then reality caught up. The detonation began at the center, where Milam stood bound by sage-enhanced roots. The Biju bombs connected first, their combined power already beyond comprehension. A microsecond later, the Kirin struck. The explosion that followed defied description. A column of light erupted skyward, punching through the storm clouds and continuing into the stratosphere. The thunderclap that accompanied it split the heavens themselves, a sound so profound it was felt rather than heard across 3 continents. The earth buckled and heaved, tectonic plates shifting under the strain. Mountains trembled on their foundations. Lakes sloshed over their banks like water in disturbed bowls. The forest that was Madara's creation was vaporized instantly, reduced to its component atoms by heat beyond imagining. The limbo barrier strained, cracked, but held just enough to direct the worst of the blast upward rather than outward. Without it, the explosion would have scoured the region clean of all life for hundreds of miles. Light brighter than 1,000 suns illuminated the world for one eternal moment. Those who looked directly at it from even distant cities were temporarily blinded. The pillar of destruction reached so high that it was visible from across the globe, a beacon of power that rewrote the understanding of what was possible in this world. When the light finally began to fade, what remained was a perfect circular crater, miles across and so deep that magma bubbled at its center. The storm clouds had been blasted apart, leaving a crystal-clear circle of sky directly above the impact zone. Around the perimeter, the remains of the light swallowed everything. Reality itself seemed to buckle under the convergence of divine lightning and tail beast chakra. The explosion's epicenter burned white-hot, a column of destruction that punched through clouds and atmosphere alike. The shockwave rolled outward in concentric rings, vaporizing everything in its path. In the final millisecond before total annihilation, Madara's right eye morphed from the Rinnegan spiraling into the distinctive pattern of Mangekyo Sharingan. Kamui. His body distorted, twisting like a reflection in troubled water before vanishing into the eye's pocket dimension. The world outside ceased to exist as he floated in a void of geometric shapes and absolute silence, watching through a dimensional window as his attack consumed the battlefield. The detonation reached its apex, a miniature sun briefly taking residence on the planet's surface. Then, as quickly as it had formed, the energy began to dissipate. Madara stepped back into reality, materializing from thin air. His cloak billowed behind him, edges scorched and smoking but largely intact. He hovered above the devastation, suspended by chakra control alone, surveying what remained of the battlefield. Where forests had stood minutes before, a perfect crater stretched for miles, its edges glassy and smooth from heat beyond comprehension. Steam rose from the center in thick, choking clouds. The air itself felt wrong, charged with residual energy that made skin prickle and lungs burn. In a chamber far removed from the devastation, Clayman leaned forward, his face illuminated by the glow of a newly activated crystal ball. The previous orb had shattered, overloaded by the magical feedback from the battle. Excellent timing, Laplace, he purred, staring into the depths of the replacement crystal. What did I miss? Laplace grinned, his jester-like face twisted with malicious glee. Only the end of your problem, Lord Clayman. The crystal's surface rippled, then cleared to reveal a distant image of an explosion piercing the heavens, a pillar of light that dwarfed mountains. By the demon lords. Sivith breathed, his usual composure shattered. As that. Milam, Clayman finished, his smile widening. Finishing what she started. Carrion crossed his massive arms, his expression unreadable. That's no ordinary blast. Of course not, Clayman laughed, waving dismissively. Did you expect her to use restraint? That upstart threatened her authority, our authority. She responded accordingly. That upstart never stood a chance, Carrion rumbled, arms folded across his massive chest. Though I admit, he lasted longer than expected. Clayman chuckled, raising a wine glass in mock toast. To Madara Uchiha, the fool who challenged a demon lord and paid the ultimate price. The crystal showed only the aftermath, now a smoking crater where once stood forest and field. It seems our concerns were unfounded, Sibeth said, regaining his poise. This Madara was powerful, but not powerful enough. Clayman leaned back, swirling wine in a crystal goblet. When she returns, we'll congratulate her on removing this obstacle. Then proceed as planned. And if she doesn't return? Carrion asked quietly. Clayman's smile never faltered. She always does. In Umamori, the world shook. Despite being miles from the epicenter, the city trembled as if caught in the maw of some great beast. Buildings swayed. Glass cracked. Citizens clung to whatever support they could find as the ground bucked beneath them. Above the city, a massive dome of translucent energy shimmered, a barrier maintained by dozens of magic users working in concert. At its edges stood Trainee and her sister Dryads, their bodies glowing with verdant power as they channeled their life force into the protective shield. Alongside them, Shuna knelt in focused meditation, her hands forming intricate patterns as she wove her own magic into the barrier's matrix. The shield flickered as another tremor rolled through, stronger than the last. King Gazel stood atop the city wall, one hand braced against a merlin to steady himself. His face, normally impassive, showed clear concern as he watched the distant horizon where a column of light had momentarily outshone the sun. What manner of power are we witnessing? He murmured, more to himself than those around him. Beside him, Benimaru's hands clenched and unclenched rhythmically, his knuckles white with tension. The Oni commander's face remained stoic, but a muscle jumped in his jaw with each new tremor. Lord Madara will prevail, he said, voice steady despite the doubt that gnawed at him. He must. 50 feet below, Shuna gasped suddenly, her concentration faltering. The barrier rippled dangerously before stabilizing. Shuna. Benimaru called down, alarmed. She shook her head, face pale. The chakra. The magicules. They're everywhere. It's like trying to breathe underwater. Her hands trembled as she forced them back into position. I've never felt anything like this before. Sweat beading on her forehead. They're magicule fluctuations, they're interfering with each other, amplifying destructively. I've never seen anything like it. A particularly violent tremor shook the city, sending roof tiles cascading to the streets below. A child cried out in fear, the sound quickly echoed by dozens more. We're all going to die, shouted a soldier, his discipline finally cracking. That's not a battle, it's the end of the world. Silence. Benimaru roared, his authority momentarily quelling the rising panic. Lord Madara fights for us. Have faith. But faith wavered as the sky beyond the barrier turned an unnatural violet, then blinding white. The light was so intense that it penetrated the barrier, casting harsh shadows across frightened faces. Lord save us, whispered an elderly goblin, clutching a younger female to his chest. The sky is breaking. Rigurd, standing with his goblin contingent, straightened his posture despite his fear. If this is our end, we face it with dignity, as Lord Madara taught us. Gazel turned to Shuna, his expression grim. Can the barrier hold? She shook her head, tears of exertion streaming down her face. Not if another blast like that comes. We're already at our limit. The king nodded once, then addressed the gathered commanders. Prepare evacuation protocols. If the barrier falls, we move underground. No one had the heart to tell him that no depth would be sufficient if the combatants unleashed their full power again. Throughout the city, panic spread like wildfire. Soldiers who had faced death countless times now huddled together, eyes fixed on the barrier above as if expecting it to shatter at any moment. Refugees who had only recently found safety in Umamori clung to each other, children crying as the earth continued to shake. It's the end times, an old goblin wailed, rocking back and forth. The world is breaking. At the heart of the crater, something stirred. Steam hissed as rubble shifted, displaced by movement from beneath. A slender hand punched through the debris, fingers splayed as if grasping for air. The ground heaved once more, and Milam emerged from the wreckage. Her appearance had changed dramatically. The playful, revealing outfit was gone, replaced by tattered remnants that barely preserved her modesty. Her combat armor, once gleaming and formidable, now hung in cracked pieces from her shoulders and torso. One of her 6 wings had vanished entirely, while the others flickered weakly, struggling to maintain their form. She staggered to her feet, swaying slightly before finding her balance. Blood trickled from a cut above her eye, and burns marked her exposed skin in intricate patterns, like lightning frozen on flesh. A racking cough bent her double, expelling smoke and steam from lungs that had inhaled the superheated air. When she straightened, her eyes scanned the devastation around her, widening slightly at the scale of destruction. That, she wheezed, voice raw, was a good one. Despite her injuries, a smile tugged at the corner of her mouth. Her hair, singed at the edges but still defiantly pink, drifted around her face in the rising thermals. She had survived through a last-second deployment of stardust magic, creating an outward explosion that had partially countered the converging attacks. The technique hadn't fully negated the damage nothing could have, but it had prevented her complete annihilation. "Where are you hiding?" she called out, voice stronger now as her incredible regenerative abilities began to assert themselves. Cracked armor pieces fell away as she rolled her shoulders experimentally. "I know that didn't get you. You're too smart for that." As if in answer, a figure materialized in the air above her madara, descending slowly, his expression unreadable as ever. Inside his mind, chaos erupted. She's alive. Asura's panic filled Madara's mental landscape like a flood. How is she alive? That was everything we had. Father, do something. Hagoromo remained a pillar of calm amidst his son's frenzy. Fascinating. Her instincts are extraordinary to counter with an outward explosion at the precise moment of convergence. She fights like a force of nature, yet there's calculation beneath the chaos. "We are going to die," Asura repeated, pacing frantically. "We are absolutely going to die. That was our trump card. We have nothing left. She's going to tear us apart." Hagoromo sighed. "If you'd calm yourself for a moment, you might notice she's injured. More importantly, she's impressed. This is no longer about destruction, it's about recognition. The entire time she has craved connection more than battle. Use that to your advantage." "Father's right," Indra interjected, his voice tight with controlled fear. "She's not attacking immediately. That's something." He swallowed hard. "Not much, but something." Asura grabbed Hagoromo by the shoulders, shaking him. "Do something. Anything. She's a monster in a little girl's body." "Talk to her," Hagoromo advised Madara, ignoring Asura's panic. "Not as an enemy, but as an equal. She's been fighting for acknowledgement as much as victory." Madara touched down at the edge of the crater, maintaining a respectful distance from Milam. His cloak settled around him, the scorched edges fluttering in the hot updrafts. Milam tilted her head, studying him with newfound interest. "You're full of surprises, aren't you?" She gestured at the devastation surrounding them. "Most people would be paced after that. But you just slipped away somewhere." Her eyes narrowed. "Another dimension. Neat trick." She took a step forward, then winced as pain lanced through her side. A particularly nasty burn across her ribs cracked and oozed as she moved. "Gotta admit, that hurt. A lot." She grinned suddenly, the expression transforming her face from fearsome to almost childlike again. "It was awesome." Madara's expression remained impassive, but something shifted in his eyes, a flicker of recognition, perhaps even respect. He had thrown everything at her, combined techniques that should have annihilated anything in existence, and still she stood before him, injured but undimmed. "You're not what I expected," he said finally, his voice carrying across the distance between them. Milam's grin widened. "I get that a lot." Milam brushed debris from her singed hair, her movements surprisingly graceful despite her battered state. The massive crater around them still smoldered, wisps of steam rising from molten rock. She rolled her shoulders, wincing slightly at the pain, then broke into a wide grin. "That was incredible," she exclaimed, bouncing on her toes. "Did you see how big that explosion was? And she mimed blocking with her arms, took it head on. I am awesome, huh?" Madara stood impassively, his torn cloak fluttering in the hot updrafts from the crater. Milam twirled, her damaged wings sputtering with residual energy. Of course I survived. I'm Milam, duh. She gestured expansively at the devastated landscape. You really gave it your all though. That was so cool. Fighting you is the most fun I've had since forever. Inside Madara's mind, panic erupted. Tell her she's amazing, Asura pleaded, his spectral form practically on its knees. Please, just tell her she's amazing before we all die. Indra, usually composed, nodded frantically. For once, I agree with my brother. Compliment her. Now. Hagoromo floated serenely between them. She doesn't seek victory, Madara. She craves recognition. Connection. The acknowledgement of an equal. Madara suppressed a sigh, his face betraying nothing of the chaos within. He studied Milam for a moment. This childlike being who had withstood his ultimate attack, who had pushed him to limits he hadn't known existed. Your durability is remarkable, he said finally, his deep voice carrying across the smoking crater. I've never encountered anyone who could withstand that combination of attacks. A pause. You fought well. The words were simple, direct, but there was genuine respect behind them. Milam's eyes widened, her smile freezing for a split second before expanding into something radiant. She zipped through the air, stopping just inches from his face. You're crazy strong too, she exclaimed, poking his chest with one finger. But your fighting style's so annoying. Stop hiding and zapping people from weird angles. She hovered there, still grinning, but something shifted in her expression. The manic energy softened, just slightly. Her eyes lingered on his face a moment too long, taking in details she hadn't noticed before: the sharp line of his jaw, the intensity of his gaze, the way his hair framed features that were, she suddenly realized, quite striking. Her smile changed, becoming something quieter, more genuine than her usual exuberance. It was a flicker, barely perceptible, but undeniably there. Something beyond simple admiration. The moment stretched between them, taut with unspoken possibility. Then a loud, unmistakable growl erupted from her stomach. Milam froze, eyes widening comically. A flush spread across her cheeks as she wrapped her arms around her midsection. She mumbled, suddenly finding the ground fascinating. Fighting makes me hungry. Madara recognized the opportunity immediately. He straightened, adjusting what remained of his cloak. Perhaps we should call this a draw, he suggested, his tone matter of fact. If you're hungry, Yumamori has excellent food. A calculated pause. That is, if you're willing to consider our match concluded. Milam's head snapped up, lips pursed in a pout that somehow made her look even younger. She folded her arms, floating a few inches higher as if to regain her advantage. HMMMPH. She huffed, looking away dramatically. Fine. A draw. But only because I'm hungry, and your food better be amazing. Madara nodded once, the barest hint of relief crossing his features. He turned toward the distant city, gathering his chakra to levitate. It will be prepared to your specifications, he assured her, rising smoothly into the air. Milam floated to his side, her damaged wings still managing to carry her effortlessly. As they began their journey back to Yumamori, the tension between them gradually dissolved, replaced by an unexpected quiet camaraderie. Madara maintained his stoic demeanor, eyes fixed forward, posture rigid despite his injuries. But Milam couldn't seem to help herself. Every few moments, she would glance sideways at him, studying his profile with curious eyes. Each time she did, a strange flutter stirred in her chest, an unfamiliar sensation that both confused and intrigued her. She didn't understand it, this new feeling. But as they flew across the scarred landscape, leaving the massive crater behind, Milam found herself smiling for reasons that had nothing to do with battle or food. Behind them, smoke continued to rise from the battlefield, a testament to power unleashed and, more remarkably, contained. The clash of titans had ended not in destruction, but in an unexpected truce. And perhaps, something more. The walk back to Yumamori felt longer than the battle itself. Dawn broke over the horizon, painting the scarred landscape in hues of gold and amber. The massive crater behind them still smoldered, wisps of smoke curling skyward like ghostly fingers. 5 hours of combat had transformed the terrain into something alien, forests reduced to ash, mountains shattered, the very earth reshaped by their clash. Madara's steps were measured, deliberate. His tattered cloak billowed slightly in the morning breeze, revealing glimpses of scorched armor and dried blood beneath. He maintained sage mode through sheer force of will, the greenish markings around his eyes the only visible sign of his technique. Beside him, Milam floated lazily, her damaged wings flickering with residual energy. One wing had disappeared entirely, leaving her with only 5. Her armor hung in pieces, burns and cuts marking her exposed skin wounds that were already beginning to heal at an astonishing rate. That was so much fun, she exclaimed for perhaps the 20th time, performing a mid-air twirl. We should do it again sometime. Madara didn't respond. His focus remained inward, on maintaining the delicate balance of chakra that kept him upright and moving. Inside his mind, the atmosphere had transformed completely. Asura collapsed onto an imaginary floor, arms and legs splayed dramatically. I thought we were dead, he moaned, throwing an arm over his eyes. Dead, 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 dead. So many times. So many times. Indra leaned against a mental pillar, his usual composure returning gradually. I need a break from this. God-tier madness, he muttered, running a hand through his spectral hair. The power in this realm is absurd. Hagoromo floated serenely between them, a small smile playing at the corners of his mouth. You did well, Madara, he said quietly. Not in power though, that was impressive, but in how you navigated the situation. You found connection where another might have found only destruction. Madara acknowledged the sage's words with the mental equivalent of a nod, his physical expression remaining impassive as they continued their journey. Hey, Milam said suddenly, dropping down to walk beside him instead of floating. Your city's gonna freak out when they see us, huh? Madara glanced sideways at her. Likely. She grinned, bouncing on her toes despite her injuries. I bet they thought I was gonna kill you. The thought may have crossed their minds, he replied dryly. As they crested the final hill, Yumamori came into view in the valley below. The city gleamed in the morning light, its walls intact thanks to the protective barrier that still shimmered faintly above it. Figures could be seen gathering at the ramparts, pointing in their direction. Milam squinted, then laughed. They look scared. Look at their little worried faces. They have reason to be concerned. PFF'd. We're fine. I mean, you look terrible, but you're walking. Madara's eyebrow twitched slightly. Your assessment is appreciated. As they approached the main gate, the barrier wavered, then parted just enough to allow them passage. Hundreds of faces lined the walls and streets, goblins, humans, dwarves, elves, and various monster races, all wearing expressions that ranged from terror to awe. Benimaru stood at the front, his normally composed features tight with concern. Beside him, Shuna clasped her hands to her chest, eyes wide with relief. King Gazel Dwargo watched from a higher vantage point, his expression unreadable. Lord Madara returns, shouted a goblin scout, his voice cracking with emotion. A murmur ran through the crowd as they noticed Milam walking peacefully beside him. No attacks. No shouting. Just walking. Milam glanced around at the sea of shocked faces, then grinned mischievously. She suddenly shot upward, hovering high above the street where everyone could see her. Listen up, everybody. She shouted, her voice carrying effortlessly across the entire city. She struck a dramatic pose, one hand on her hip, the other pointing directly at Madara. This guy right here, Madara, is my newest friend. The crowd fell silent, collectively holding its breath. Milam's grin widened. She spun once in the air, her damaged wings flaring with pink light, then added with childish delight, no besties forever. The declaration hung in the air like a thunderclap. Someone dropped a plate somewhere in the stunned crowd. A child whispered loudly, "What's a bestie?" Only to be frantically shushed by a parent. Inside Madara's mind, Asura practically teleported to his feet. Say it back. He begged, hands clasped in front of him. Just agree with her. Don't ruin this. We finally stopped fighting and I cannot do another round. Hagoromo nodded solemnly. It's a harmless declaration, Madara. One that will ease tensions considerably. Indra merely sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. Madara stood motionless, his expression betraying nothing of the internal conversation. The crowd waited, the silence stretching uncomfortably. Finally, he spoke, his deep voice carrying despite its low volume. Besties. Forever. The words sounded alien in his mouth, stiff and formal, like a foreign phrase he'd learned phonetically. A faint redness crept up his neck, barely visible above his high collar. Milam's delight was immediate and explosive. She squealed with joy, doing a backflip in midair before zooming down to throw an arm around his shoulders. See. He said it. You all heard him. The tension broke like a dam. Cheers erupted from the crowd. The barrier dissolved completely as Benimaru gave the signal, and citizens rushed forward to welcome their leader home. A feast. King Gazel declared, his voice booming over the celebration. In honor of Lord Madara's victory and his new alliance. Preparations began immediately. Tables were brought to the central plaza, laden with food and drink. Musicians appeared, filling the air with melodies of triumph and celebration. Throughout it all, Madara maintained his composure, acknowledging greetings with slight nods, his posture rigid despite his exhaustion. The sage mode markings around his eyes glowed faintly, evidence of his continuing effort to remain standing. The feast quickly became the most boisterous celebration Yumamori had ever seen. Milam proved to be the center of attention, her energy seemingly inexhaustible despite the battle. She moved from table to table, interacting with every race and species with genuine curiosity and enthusiasm. You're fuzzy, she exclaimed, patting a goblin child on the head. The little one giggled, reaching up to touch her pink hair in return. And you have horns, she told a young Kijin, who blushed furiously at being noticed by the powerful being. She sampled every dish with gusto, often consuming portions meant for 4 or 5 people in a single sitting. This is amazing, she shouted after tasting a dwarven meat pie, crumbs flying from her mouth. More. The children of the city quickly overcame their fear, drawn to her childlike enthusiasm and bright colors. Soon she had a small entourage following her everywhere, hanging on her every word as she recounted increasingly exaggerated versions of the battle. And then he made this huge lightning dragon thing, she told them, arms spread wide to indicate the scale. And I was like POW. And he was like whoosh. And then BOOOOM. The children gasped appropriately, their eyes wide with wonder. Meanwhile, Madara sat at the head table, watching the proceedings with apparent detachment. Benimaru and Shuna flanked him, occasionally casting concerned glances his way. Lord Madara, Shuna ventured quietly, your injuries are irrelevant, he finished for her, his voice low but firm. Benimaru leaned closer. You fought Milam for hours and you're wounded. The strain must be manageable, Madara cut him off. But it wasn't, not really. His reserves were nearly depleted. Each passing minute required greater concentration to maintain the technique that kept him conscious and upright. His body was a roadmap of injuries, broken ribs, internal bleeding, chakra pathways strained to their limits. If he released Sage Mode now, he would collapse instantly. As the celebration continued around him, Madara's breathing slowed imperceptibly. The markings around his eyes flickered once, twice. His vision blurred at the edges. Across the plaza, Milam paused in her storytelling, her head turning toward him as if sensing the change. She excused herself from her young audience and made her way through the crowd with surprising grace. Just as she reached the head table, Madara's Sage Mode finally gave out. The markings vanished. His eyes dulled. His body, denied the support of nature energy, surrendered to exhaustion all at once. He slumped forward in his chair, consciousness fleeing before he could even raise a hand to catch himself. But he didn't fall. Milam was there, moving faster than anyone could follow. She caught him gently, adjusting his position so that he appeared to be merely sleeping rather than collapsed. The celebration faltered as people noticed something was wrong. Benimaru half rose from his seat, hand moving to his sword. Milam shot him a look that stopped him cold. He's just sleeping, she announced, loud enough for nearby tables to hear. Fighting me is super tiring, you know. She settled into the empty chair beside Madara, her demeanor suddenly calmer, almost protective. Without disturbing him, she reached for a plate of food and began eating, her movements more controlled than before. Benimaru exchanged glances with Shuna, who nodded slightly. The message was clear, let her be. The celebration resumed gradually, though many eyes continued to dart toward the head table where the fearsome demon lord now sat beside the sleeping form of their leader. Hours passed. The feast continued well into the evening, torches and magical lights illuminating the plaza as the sun set. Milam remained at Madara's side, occasionally speaking to those who approached the table, but never leaving her post. 4 hours into his unplanned slumber, Madara's breathing deepened, shifting from the shallow rhythm of exhaustion to something more restful. His body had begun the long process of recovery, chakra pathways slowly replenishing, wounds gradually knitting closed. Beside him, Milam smiled softly, a far cry from her usual manic grin. She leaned back in her chair, one hand absently twirling a strand of pink hair as she watched over her new bestie, with unexpected gentleness. The evening stars appeared one by one above Yumamori, witnesses to an outcome no one could have predicted: a demon lord standing guard over the man who had fought her to a standstill, her expression thoughtful as she considered what tomorrow might bring. Midnight cloaked the remote chamber in shadow. 4 figures sat around an ancient oak table, their faces illuminated by the eerie blue glow of a crystal ball at its center. The orb pulsed with newfound power, charged by rare magicules harvested from the deepest caverns of the world. Clayman's thin fingers hovered above the sphere, tracing arcane symbols. The explosion we witnessed earlier should have settled matters. Milam would have returned by now if she'd completed her task. Perhaps she was injured, Carrion suggested, his massive leonine form leaning back in a chair that creaked under his weight. Even she has limits. Sivith's crimson ponytail swayed as he shook his head. Unlikely. That level of damage would be unprecedented. Frey said nothing, her golden eyes fixed on the crystal as it began to activate. She'd returned just hours ago from her own mission, summoned urgently by Clayman's message about developments in Yumamori. The crystal's surface swirled with fog before clearing to reveal a battlefield or what remained of one. A massive crater stretched across the landscape, its edges still smoking. There, Clayman pointed triumphantly. Just as I said. Milam obliterated him. The image shifted, rewinding to moments before the explosion. The crystal showed Madara hovering above a devastated forest, his hands weaving complex patterns while storm clouds gathered overhead. Wait, Sivith leaned forward. That's not Milam's attack. The footage continued. Lightning coalesced into a massive serpentine form Kirin while 7 lotus formations discharged Biju bombs simultaneously toward a single point. Clayman's smug expression faltered. What is this? What am I seeing? The convergence of power erupted in blinding light, the crystal momentarily dimming to protect their eyes from the feedback. He did that. Clayman's voice rose an octave. Not Milam. Sivith's jaw clenched tight, his golden eyes narrowing. Impossible. The magicule concentration required would kill any mortal vessel. His body should have disintegrated from channeling that much power. Yet he didn't, Carrion observed flatly. Clayman stood abruptly, circling the table. This changes nothing. He still failed. Milam would have returned if she'd been defeated. The crystal flickered, then shifted to a current view of Yumamori. Night had fallen, but the city blazed with light. Tables filled every street and plaza, laden with food and drink. Citizens of all races mingled, laughing and celebrating. What is this? Clayman hissed. A feast. After such destruction. The image focused on the head table. There sat Madara Uchiha, slumped in his chair, eyes closed, breathing deeply in apparent slumber. And beside him. Milam, Sivith whispered. The demon lord sat relaxed beside Madara's sleeping form, one hand casually resting on the table near his arm. She smiled, chatting with a goblin child who offered her a flower crown. She accepted it with a laugh, placing it atop her pink hair. Clayman's face contorted. No. No. His fist slammed against the table, rattling the crystal ball. She was supposed to kill him. I had go there for a fight, not dinner. Sivith's fingers drummed against the armrest of his chair. Evidently not. Or perhaps. His eyes widened slightly. Perhaps he broke her mind and successfully mind-controlled her like you were planning to do. Look at her, Clayman snarled, pointing at the crystal. She's guarding him while he sleeps. She would never not willingly. A new form of mental domination. Sivith mused, already calculating possibilities. Something beyond our current understanding. If we could replicate it. We need to act quickly. Clayman paced faster now. Spread word that Madara has enslaved Milam through forbidden magic. Turn the other demon lords against him before he consolidates his position. Or, Sivith countered, we wait. Observe. Learn his methods. If he can control Milam, imagine what else he might accomplish, what we might accomplish with such knowledge. Frey remained silent throughout their exchange, her eyes never leaving the crystal. She watched as a drunk dwarf stumbled too close to Madara's chair. Before the dwarf could fall against him, Milam's hand shot out, gently redirecting the inebriated figure without even interrupting her conversation with a nearby elf. The movement was subtle, protective and utterly natural. Carrion noticed her attention. What do you think, Frey? About all of this? The chamber fell silent. Clayman and Sivith paused their plotting to await her response. Frey took a measured breath, her voice quiet but clear when she finally spoke. I think. Milam wasn't defeated. I think she chose to stay. She looked up, meeting each of their gazes in turn. And that's far more dangerous than anything you two manipulators planned for. Clayman scoffed. Preposterous. Milam doesn't choose to follow anyone. She's impulsive, childish. Precisely, Frey interrupted, her tone sharper than usual. And what do children value above all else? Power, Sivith suggested. Attention, Carrion rumbled. Friendship, Frey corrected. Look at her face when she speaks to him, even while he sleeps. That's not mind control. That's genuine attachment. The crystal zoomed in on Milam's expression as she glanced at Madara's sleeping form. Something softened in her features, a look none of them had seen before. Impossible, Clayman whispered, but doubt had crept into his voice. Frey stood, her white and gold dress catching the crystal's light. You've always underestimated her emotional capacity, Clayman. You saw her power and ignored her heart. That was your first mistake. She moved toward the chamber door. Your second was sending her to fight someone worthy of her respect. Where are you going? Clayman demanded. Back home, she answered simply. The balance has shifted. I suggest you all do the same. After Frey departed, silence hung heavy in the chamber. Carrion stretched his massive frame, joints popping audibly. She's right, he said finally. I can smell your fear, Clayman. It reeks. Clayman whirled on him. I fear nothing. Least of all some upstart human with delusions of grandeur. Then you're a fool, Carrion replied, rising from his seat. That upstart just fought Milam to a standstill and somehow earned her loyalty in the process. He moved toward the door. I'm with Frey on this. Time to prepare like she safe hours ago. After the leonine demon lord departed, only Clayman and Sivith remained, staring into the crystal where Milam now adjusted Madara's cloak, ensuring it covered him properly against the night chill. This changes everything, Sivith murmured. Our plans for the western states. For Eurazania. All of it needs recalculation. Clayman's thin frame trembled with barely contained rage. No. I refuse to accept this. Milam will be mine to control. I've spent years perfecting the charm. Evidently not perfectly enough, Sivith observed dryly. The crystal's image shifted again, panning across the celebrating city. Citizens who hours earlier had cowered in fear now danced and sang, raising toasts to both Madara and Milam. The alliance that Clayman had feared most had materialized before his eyes. We need to separate them, he declared, composing himself with visible effort. Drive a wedge between them somehow. Sivith's eyes gleamed with sudden interest. Perhaps. But not through force. That's clearly ineffective. He leaned forward, studying Milam's protective posture. We need something more subtle. Something that exploits whatever connection they've formed. Clayman smiled thinly. I'm listening. Jealousy, Sivith suggested. Doubt. Misunderstanding. The very weapons that destroy any friendship. His finger traced patterns on the table's surface. We need not defeat Madara directly. We need only ensure Milam sees him as we do a threat to her position, her freedom. The crystal ball flickered as Milam laughed at something a young Kijin said, her hand unconsciously remaining near Madara's arm. It won't be easy, Clayman admitted reluctantly. She seems genuinely attached. All attachments can be severed, Sivith replied, with the right pressure applied at the right moment. He rose gracefully. I'll need to consult certain texts in my collection. Ancient magics that influence perception rather than control minds directly. As they plotted, the crystal showed Madara stirring slightly in his sleep. Without waking, he shifted position, his head tilting toward Milam. She noticed immediately, her expression softening into something neither Demon Lord had ever seen on her face before. Something dangerously close to tenderness. In the shadows of the remote chamber, Clayman and Sivith continued their scheming, unaware that the very foundation of their plans had already crumbled beneath them. For in Umamori, something unprecedented had occurred, something no magic could replicate or manipulate. Milam Nava, the capricious demon lord who had destroyed nations on whims, had found someone who neither feared her power nor sought to control it. Someone who had simply acknowledged her as an equal. And that, more than any explosion that scarred the land, had changed the world forever.